This side of the table. Just unplug it and push it.
Okay, shoot, that's the handle.
Nope. Oh, children. The man of the hour.
What
Or the man,
my
the
friend?
man of many hours. Depends on how you look at it, I guess. So you have entered during the very exciting wink wink pre-show portion of our program,
Awesome.
where I do all of my Facebook sharing. Is painful and tedious and slow. As I have mentioned many times before, with some of the best programmers on the planet, Facebook can't think of a way where you can share to the 100-something places that we share to in one click.
Oh yeah, now.
I think the answer is that we can. We just don't want to. So that's why I end up going on early. We do all that, and then we go live to hop101.net at 5:01. Give everybody an extra minute to get their popcorn and get comfortable.
Well, I just shared it to my Facebook page, so there you go, brother.
You did all my work for me too. Would you even? I mean, I usually have this quite long written out show promotion that I share out. You did all the work. I just shared what you did.
That's all.
A lot more effective than what I do.
Well, I looked at the video on Facebook and I was like, how does this have 128 shares? Oh yeah, Jeff shares to like 128 different groups.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, look, it's how you got to do it. It's just how you got to do it. I like to say that we have three legs of our stool, so to speak. And that is Facebook, hot101.net, and then the TCP Media Group. The other stuff is I don't want to say it's ancillary, but it kind of it's kind of backs the other stuff up. So you may be seeing four squares on your screen.
Mhm.
One is my much better half, who might be in and out of here during the program because I have battling. Where neither one of us has been feeling very well for about a month, and there is a chance, without trying to be too graphic, that I may have to leave the room.
Gotcha.
So here, the other square is a very dear friend of mine, Franz from Schuylkill County, PA. The only way he can take in the program is literally to dial into the Zoom and listen. So that's what he does.
So give me 1 second. Let me go grab something. I'll be right
No
back.
worries. We're here. We're good. We've got 5 minutes.
Go.
Hello, Franz.
Hello, sir. How are you?
Okay, you made it for the fun sharing part of the program.
I would have done it earlier, but it's kind of wrapped up there. A lot of stuff going on lately.
No problem.
Anyway, glad to be here. Look forward to your interesting commentary. Did I lose you?
No, I'm in the middle of my.
Oh, okay. I just
sharing.
went kind of silent there. I didn't know if I
I'm in the middle of my
accidentally
sharing.
tapped the mute button or something.
I have to be careful that I don't.
I take it
Stick
you're
it
enjoying the
where-
April showers.
We got a flood watch around here.
Yeah, it's pretty bad here too.
We really do. We have a flood watch here. It'll be interesting. Try to work.
I'm high enough. I'm not vulnerable to flooding here, but it's raining like the Dickens has been.
Well, we won't either.
No, as I recollect,
I
where
will
you
cross-
live, you probably
I'll cross some creeks and stuff that might be a little.
you
Interesting
might find
tomorrow
some
morning.
high water. Yeah, well, that's nature, and it is April yet. My brother's
Well-
birthday today, in fact.
Since we did not get the snow that we should have received, this rain is actually a very good thing.
Oh, absolutely. I'm not complaining. In fact, I got the nicest forsythia, and now my lilacs are as nice as they've ever been in the 7 years I've been here.
Try that. They might kick me out.
Did I share with you that picture I had taken of myself and our 2 Schuylkill commission candidates? If I didn't, I'll send out again.
Don't think so.
Well, although the lie of land up here is a heavily Republican district, but I think we might have a chance of
All right,
having
hang on,
Providence
gang.
smile on us.
I'm gonna make a run.
Yep, go ahead.
I shouldn't, but I'm going to. 115 shares, kids. It's good stuff.
Good.
Oh, goodness. Boy, can he do a lot in 60 seconds? All righty. What do you say we have a radio show, anybody?
Yeah, sounds good.
Let's roll.
You don't belong up there. All right, let's have at it. Need that. Need that. I need that. Thank you. All right, let's have a go. Oh, actually, let's. I may. Come on, man. Come on, man. Hello. Hello. I'll work on that as we go. Darn it, forgot about that one. Let's have a go.
Do you want a man for president who's seasoned through and through, but not so doggone seasoned that he won't try something new? A man who's old enough to know to do. To you, it's up to you. It's strictly up to you. Do you want a man with spirit who is not afraid to fight? A loyal man who brings a job a fresh new point of view. Well, it's up to you. It's up to you. It's strictly up to you. And do you deny to any man the right he's guaranteed to be elected president, no matter what his creed? It's to which we must be true. So it's up to you. It's up to you. It's strictly up to you. Do you like a man who answers straight, a man who's always fair? We'll measure him against the others and when you compare. You'll cast your vote for Kennedy and the change that's over to you. It's up to you, it's up to you, it's up to you.
Welcome from my humble second bedroom here in the Saucon Valley, part of the Lehigh Valley in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, part of these United States, Western Hemisphere, North American continent. I forgot my own intro. Good start, gang. Good start. On this planet Earth, the only one we have, third rock from the sun in the Terran solar system, part of the Milky Way galaxy. This is the Kennedy Effect live for the 30th of April, 2023, the last day of April. It is already, for all intent and purpose, May. And however, the April showers are not leaving, and they are making a fierce final stand here in the Lehigh Valley. We have a flood watch. It has been raining for about 2.5 days. I think it started Friday night, and it has been raining ever since. So we got a flood watch. However, that said, given the fact that we had practically no snow whatsoever here in the Commonwealth, this past winter, the rain will be much appreciated come June, July, and August, I should hope. Anyway, so thank you for being here. We are live for the 30th of April, 2023. Let's get through the business end of the program. Wherever you might be across the 115, I think it was, places that we have shared the program this week. Thank you for allowing us to be part of your little corner of the Facebook universe, your pages, your groups, your personal timelines, wherever it is that you have allowed us to be part of your corner of the Facebook universe. Thank you. We could not do it without you. You can stay right where you are, continue to watch and listen as you have dinner, get the kids ready for school tomorrow, get ready for work, whatever it is that you might be doing here. It is a mix of laundry and trying to keep the dog occupied because she's bored to tears. She has not been able to really be out today because it's so muddy and just miserable. I don't know that she cares that much about the mud, but we do. So stay right where you are. You can continue to listen exactly where you are. Or you can come to our home group Facebook page called That Other Side of Information, where I will say hello to you, welcome you, as I did quite a few number of folks already in there. There is Andrea and Randall, of course. I love you, my hippie brother. Megan, Phyllis, Darlene is there. A hearty hello to all of you. You can come to our home group Facebook page where I will see your comments and questions. If you enter comments and questions anywhere else that we have shared the program, I will do my level best. I promise to keep up with them and to be able to answer your questions and share your comments and share your questions to our guest. To our sisters and brothers and friends and family at hot101.net, the originator, one of the cornerstones, keystones of global internet radio. Thank you for allowing us into your devices yet again this week. To our listeners all around the world. And if you don't know how to listen to hot101.net, then you have not been listening to me. It is very, very simple. Our name is our web address, hot101.net. You can listen on any type of device that can connect to the internet, period, end of story. But you don't also have to use the website either. You can use any of the three apps. Just grammatically corrected myself in mid-sentence. That's how on top of my game I am today. You can use any one of our apps. Go to the Apple App Store for an Apple device, the Google Play Store for an Android device, and if you should have any other type of device, please go to the TuneIn Radio app. Go up to the top, go to the search bar, type in hot101.net, and you can listen to us there. And the apps are about as easy to use as you possibly could imagine. Tap it, it opens, it plays, no work for you to do. It's as easy as it comes. And of course, we say hello to our friends and family at the TCP Media Group from right here in the Commonwealth, from Lancaster, PA. Still a very active and extremely informative media group. So let's get to work, shall we? It has been a week, has it not? There's been just a couple things going on this past week, and of course, a couple things going on throughout our nation, as there always is. Now, the gentleman joining us tonight, we have been going back and forth for, I think, a couple of months on to try to work out a date. But you know what? Sometimes life gets in the way. One of the interesting things about being the host and or presenter of a program is you generally don't, you walk a fine line between having the folks who will upstage you and sort of not having the folks who will upstage you. But today we have a man who is way, way more followed than me, way more important in the media landscape than me, and his beard game is way better than mine. Way, way, way better than mine. So I am happy to be upstaged by him. And I think in this social media climate, where social media is such a very, very deeply important and ingrained part, really not just of American society, but probably of global society, there is a pecking order has developed, if you will, where the folks with all the big, huge piles of followers generally don't visit the ones with less. And yet he has been kind enough to do that. He is doing way more a favor for me than I am for him, I can guarantee you, within the pecking order of social media. So we are thrilled to have the Big Red Celt in the building. Now, I have to explain to you before I ask you our opening question why I did that. I think I explained it. Well, it goes on. You used part of the clip of why I did that, but not the rest of it. So let me just throw this out so that I don't look like a complete fool, because I'm very good at that. I don't need help with that. Why I said Celt or Celt. The Celts obviously were the tribe, but it's the Celtic Football Club. and the Boston Celtics, whom I am not a fan of. But that's why there was a little bit of gray area, or shall we say ginger area in there. But you were quick to correct, and I deserve it, because if I get stuff wrong, I want to be corrected. I hate doing wrong things. That's why we do comments. That's why we do questions. And oh, by the way, phone line is not open quite yet, but we will open it later in the program. So without further ado, we welcome to the program the Big Red Celt. Welcome and thank you. A very humble and sincere thank you for you taking the time to be with us on a Sunday evening.
Hey, Jeff. So yeah, I did kind of correct you, because that's over the last 3 years that I've done social media now. That's been a little pet peeve, and I've talked to some of my other mutuals after I put that video out, and I was like, I blame the Boston Celtics. That's what I blame that completely.
In my world, I would blame the Celtic Football Club.
Yeah.
Glasgow Celtic.
But most people just call me Celt. It's an easier one than saying the full name, so feel free. But no, you're still doing me a favor too, because I'm always still growing my social media channels. And like I said, I've only been doing this for 3 years. Like most people who start on social media, I started with absolutely nothing. Wife convinced me to join TikTok one day, and next thing you know, here I am.
Well, let me start the way that we start with all of our guests, especially our first-time guests, with our opening question. It is intentionally vague, vague by design, because I want to know what you think. Who is Big Red Celt, and how did you get here?
That is kind of weird, actually. So in the height of the pandemic, around September 2020, my wife convinced me to download TikTok. Convinced me to download TikTok as it. I'm guessing somebody is at the door.
Is excited.
Yeah, thankfully.
Don't worry, it could very well happen here too. It happened right before we went on the air. So we got a package, and somebody Daisy Dog downstairs went mental. So don't, please. I find those things. We've had guests in the past who've been mortified when their pets do something. I find it humanizing, and we're all doing this from home, right?
Yeah.
So just, I think it's wonderful. And if they want to come visit you, we'll come see them later in the. Bring them in.
The irony is Amazon has already ran today. Like, I already got the stuff that I was getting from packages, so I have no idea what they're probably barking at the cat, to be honest. But no, about September 2020, the wife convinced me to download TikTok and start as hey, why don't you watch some funny videos? And after a while, I started making videos. And the beginning was going to be drunken comedy, like drunken veteran comedy and baking and cooking videos. I was following a person on TikTok named Goddess Mia. She got a death threat. She put out like a video asking for help, and I tracked the guy down. And I did a video that later series referred to as I See You, because somebody said in one of my comments that this isn't is this you? This is a I see you. I know what you're doing type thing. And it kind of caused me to go from, hey, TikTok is going to be me making drunken veteran like videos and cooking and baking, to talking about what I do for a living, and which is counter extremism. I went to bed the night that I put that video up with like 500, 700 followers in that range. And I woke up the next morning with 10,000. And I just figured at that point, people are interested in what I do for a living, what the subjects that I study. And I've made videos ever since. Now I'm branching out into YouTube. I do a lot of stuff on Twitter, but I think I'm at 600 and almost 40,000 total on TikTok and 10,000 on everywhere else.
Oh, well, okay. So for TikTok, then what did you say? 640?
I think like 640,000.
That only puts you 630,700 ahead of me.
Oh,
But we're
637.5 thousand.
But we're growing.
Nice.
That's the important part. But why? So why take on such a divisive topic? And I don't say divisive in a derogatory way.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
are clearly, for all the hope that I do see out there, I find it very hard to comprehend sometimes the speed and depth at which the country is going in so many directions.
Mhm.
Because I do see some hope out there. 70% of the population thinks the Dobbs decision was wrong.
Mhm.
A extreme right-wing congressperson like Miss Grace from South Carolina, blanking on her first name for some, Nancy from I believe I have that right, from South Carolina, you know, who did promotional campaign videos in front of Trump Tower on Fifth Avenue, said that her party is on the wrong side of this women's rights, bodily autonomy
Mhm.
debate. There's a group of 5 South Carolina state senators, 3 Democrats and 2 Republican women senators, who stopped a near total abortion ban. We see the deep and growing activity of Gen Z and even younger and first-time voters in the political process. And I'm continually astounded by them, especially considering that they did not grow up in a country where they knew any bit of the New Deal the way I did. They've only known a Reaganism and trickle down and austerity. And yet they've come to the realization on their own largely that there is better. And yet at the same time, I talked a good, I think, hour plus last week about how, you know, we've referred to the states in a constitutional standpoint of laboratories of democracy. They have become laboratories of fascism.
Mhm.
We have 2 countries now. Florida is not a functioning democracy. Neither is Texas. Montana, Wyoming, Iowa, both Dakotas, South Carolina, we've seen a Republican majority new Supreme Court in North Carolina decide to throw out fair congressional maps, well, state legislative maps as well. What happened in Tennessee? We have states that have become laboratories of fascism. So, a very long-winded way of saying, when the nation is as divisive as it is at the moment, or divided, grammar again, why even delve into any of this? Why even put, I mean, I've gotten my death threat too. I'm actually somewhat proud of it, to be honest. At least somebody's watching.
Mhm.
But why even get into this?
Because for every one of me or every other person like me, because I mean, there's a whole groups of us on social media. There's 10 or 12 on the right pushing like active fascism and genocide. You have Michael Knowles, the whole Daily Wire crew, Ben Shapiro, with followings in the millions. Like, I'm not even competing on their level, but I'm still debunking their propaganda and disinformation. And their disinformation and propaganda is causing neo-Nazis waving swastika flags to show up at a pride rally or a drag show. Actual neo-Nazis in the United States. Because if we don't fight back against that, what did my grandparents fight against?
Yeah, I love the meme that didn't last nearly as long as it should have, which is the photo of the D-Day paratroopers in the back of a troop transport getting ready to exit the aircraft, if you will, with the title underneath, the original Antifa.
Mhm.
Since we know that Antifa is not a group, doesn't exist, in any real given form. How did we get here? I'll be 54 in June. I've studied history because I made it a point to study history, not just take the history that we were taught in school, but to go further and to go deeper. And history certainly has an element of it that is up for interpretation, but it's also factual. These things happened, period. That's it. Why do you think that this is happening? How did we get to this point when there's still enough of us in this nation, even though the nation is skewing younger, that know the history of the country and know that we've been here before? There's another great meme that I wish I could find because it's buried way too deep in my pictures of a German man holding up a sign saying, "We've seen this before. I'm German. We've seen this before." So how did we get here?
We never stopped being here. We've always been here. You can just see it now.
So the Lindbergh, Bund, fascist elements of the post-Republican Great Depression into World War II has just never left us.
Correct. Like I did a post on Twitter. Like if you start looking at these never, like, I don't know how to phrase it, where we've been here before, look at the current talk from, the MAGA and conservative extremists about the quote unquote woke and trans agenda. They always paint it as some demonic force. There was literally a person yesterday, I'll have to pull up Twitter to see what the screenshots I pulled, where it was him going into a rant. This is a person on Twitter with 1 million followers. I got 10,000 on Twitter, 1 million people viewing his things, talking about a demonic force in America. And he linked that to the trans quote unquote agenda. That's the satanic panic from the 80s. The satanic panic from the 80s is the communist Red Scare from previous before that. It keeps going back to that point. The far right religious extremism in this country has always existed. We just pick a different other each time that they target on it.
And of course, when all else fails, mention George Soros.
Yeah. I mean, the George Soros anti-Semitic protocols of the Elders of Zion references will never stop appearing. But we have had elements of far right religious extremism, or what we now refer to as fascism, since the founding of this country. It's just they have an easier way to communicate now. I mean, how old is the KKK? How old is neo-Nazi in general? I mean, we had, back before we entered World War II, 20,000 American Nazis held a rally in Madison Square Gardens.
Mm-hmm.
Pictures
and then marched outside of it.
Yeah, we've had that ever since. This has never gone away. It's just we now have the technology that I can pick up a little device, hold it in my hand, and see the fact that neo-Nazis showed up to a drag show, I think it was Iowa, that if it didn't get covered on cable TV from, 5 to 9 time slot, you never knew it happened. But it's happened. I've literally been driving in my city and saw a guy in his work truck with his company name, phone number, and everything, and a swastika flag flying from his construction work truck.
It's my at risk of jumping to the end of the book, and we have as much time here as you are willing to stay for, or at least up to 9 o'clock. But
probably not that far, but
no,
we'll get some time in.
As willing as at risk of jumping to the end of the story. It has been my contention on this program for quite a while now. 2 big things that I do believe, as much as I hate the phrase, because I do think it's sort of commanding and somewhat condescending. You have to realize, but I do think there are 2 big things that the American populace, regardless of where you fall on the political scale, has to realize, in my humble opinion. 1, the Republican Party is not a functioning political party in any way, shape, or form any longer. It is, in fact, a corporation. It is owned by the billionaires, and the workers, if you will, are the elected officials and the party structure. The second thing is that same billionaire class has made a very conscious decision. They have a very intentional decision. I don't know if they even took the time to weigh the pros and cons, but they have come to this conclusion that democracy is no longer convenient for the unabated hoarding and extraction of wealth. And therefore, if it means sponsoring, buying, owning the Marjorie Taylor Greens, Lauren Boeberts, George Santos, Louis Gohmerts, Rand Pauls, Lindsey Grahams of the world, so that those employees will go in and just destroy government and continue to throw up the Goebbels like balloons of look over here, look over here, look over here, while the hand is in your pocket, then they're good with that. And they don't seem to care that you, quote unquote, you can't take it with you. When David Koch died, he took his billions. I don't know if he thought he took his billions with him, or what, I don't know, but what is your thought on either or both of those two conclusions that I do believe the American people have to reach?
That's pretty accurate. Especially, I would even go further to say that at this point, we don't have a political party that is for the interest of the common citizen. Yes, I vote blue, I vote Democrat. They are not the solution. That is which train do you want to take into full-fledged fascism faster? You want the fast one or the slow one? I'm voting for the slow one. Because to be honest, I mean, Biden's not my first choice. Was he better than Trump? Yeah. Excuse me. But the two-party system in general it's two waging corporations. That's all it is. Well, which one do you think is going to get you to the result that you don't want faster? And that's the Republicans. I had a more coherent thought and it left me.
In a 4-hour program, it happens to me almost every 5 minutes.
See, this is a little
if
different
I'm lucky,
format
if
than
I'm
I'm used to. I'm used to like, oh wait, I messed up. Click, delete. Click.
Well, if we just look at this will lead me to a question eventually, I promise. If we just look at the income tax cuts on the top 1% since the imposition of the Reagan era. Just the income tax cuts. We're not even talking about capital gains, the ability to offshore money, the ability to offshore. Well, we've lost over 65,000 factories in this country since George W. Bush in 2000. Not 65,000 jobs, factories. We've shifted the entire American industrial base to China. And then for some reason, the party that did it gets to bitch about it. I don't quite get that part, but we've seen a transfer of wealth from the 99% to the top 1%, and perhaps even more appropriately, the top 0.01% of over $55 trillion. And it's still not enough.
No, it'll never be enough for them.
So why hasn't the 99% figured any better? Why is this something that you and I and an all too small group of people know and understand compared to the general populace?
Because the general populace is still comfortable. They're not luxurious, but they're comfortable. It's the same reason, like, kind of going back.
Wealth inequality is worse now than it was before the Republican Great Depression.
Yeah.
The labor participation rate, while recovering, is only slightly higher than it was during the Republican Great Depression.
Mhm.
These folks are not temporarily inconvenienced billionaires.
But they believe they are. Propaganda and disinformation has trained the American citizen to believe, like you called him, a temporarily inconvenienced billionaire, or even if they don't want to shoot that high, a temporarily inconvenienced millionaire. Oh, if I just work harder. That's what we taught. That's what I'm 40. That's what I was told as a kid. If you work hard enough, you could be the president of the United States. Could I? No. No matter how high I grow my social media platform, I could never be elected president of the United States because I am not in. Every one of the majority of the American citizens thinks that if they just put in that extra 10 hours of overtime, if they drop it into their savings account at 0.4 or whatever percent interest, eventually they'll be rich. And you've had both political parties, and again, like I said, I vote Democrat, but I vote Democrat because we have a two-party system. You have both political parties telling that to the American people. If you work hard enough, you too can achieve great things. Well,
I'm a fan of British Parliament Prime Minister's Question Time. I think it's a brilliant governmental exercise. I wish we had it here.
Yeah.
Imagine former President Clinton or Obama or George W. or even Trump having to go to the well of Congress and take questions, especially from the quote unquote leader of the opposition.
exactly.
The United States, you've mentioned a couple times already, two-party system. My history studies tell me that the framers were not exactly, especially Jefferson himself, who mentioned factionalism quite a number of times in the Federalist Papers, didn't want any parties. And if we did have them, he did seem to be somewhat resigned to the fact that they would form. But if they did, was certainly hoping for more than one. I'm an elected member inside the Democratic Party to my state party. And yet every week say here over and over and over and over and over and over again, my party's not perfect. It's not even close. But I do think we're the only ones trying. That said, is the United States set up for, or is it time that us here on the ground, so to speak, start considering? I don't think we're going to transition to a parliamentary system anytime soon, but we do see some little islands around the country. New York City did it, Seattle did it, of ranked choice voting, which is about as close as we're going to get at this point. Are you an advocate of all of that?
I am very much an advocate of ranked choice voting. That's what I think the best option for us to get with our current setup, without tearing down everything and starting completely over, which, that might not be so bad either. But with the current system of government we have, ranked choice voting gives us the best option for a third party, or even hopefully a third, fourth, fifth entering into the equation.
Is that the solution, do you think? Or one, or maybe a piece of a larger solution, or one of many solutions to get us to where we need to be?
I would say a piece of a larger solution. Not like it's not going to fix everything. It's not. But I mean, some of the founders were also an advocate of, hey, this document we wrote should only last a generation.
Jefferson referred to it as a living document.
Yeah. We're still being governed,
to form a more perfect union, perfect, which the the presupposition is that it's not perfect and never will be, but to form a more perfect union.
Correct. I mean, we call ourselves the greatest nation in the world, and then one day I hope we can actually like really claim that title. But we're not.
Well, we're number one in a lot of things.
Yeah.
Maternal mortality,
Mass shootings.
mass shootings, wealth inequality.
Yeah.
Book banning.
Yeah.
Segmentation of our own society. We have an increasing, we're not number one, but we're certainly on our way to folks who no longer have power in running water.
Mhm.
I posted 2 articles this week. I wasn't intending to go here quite yet, but since it came up, we do natural conversation here. It's the beauty of the program, I think. At least I'd like to think that the time that we're here lets us get into deeper things. I posted 2 articles this week. A largely community of color in North Carolina traveled to and directly appealed to the United Nations to come and tour their community because they're being poisoned by chemical plant. And the federal government, and God knows the state government in North Carolina, is not going to do anything to help them. A group of citizens in California, in Los Angeles County specifically, have appealed. The United Nations went on their own. They have community backup, but the United Nations went on their own to study the condition under which prisoners in the Los Angeles County prison were suffering. These are things that when I was younger, that Walter Cronkite would tell us about, that the United States provided transportation and protection to a UN group monitoring an election in fill in the blank third world nation.
Yeah.
And yet the United Nations has now made, they do more of their work within the lower 48 than they do in some of these far-flung quote unquote third world nations.
And they need to add in the 49th in Hawaii because of the jet fuel poisoning native Hawaiian population's water supplies.
I guess I'm at risk of asking you the same question over and over and over again. But why is this not a bigger story? Why did cable spend so much time on Tucker Carlson this week when the United Nations now has declared, they did this quite a while ago, by the way, the United States a failing or regressing democracy, and that teams of United Nations officials are touring the South, where a growing number of people, again, have no running water or sewage, have lost the ability to attend public school whatsoever because the children now have to work, or the way Arkansas has made it now legal for 13-year-olds to work, and Iowa 16-year-olds. And oh, by the way, Iowa made it legal for, it was Missouri, made it legal for 16-year-olds to open carry without a permit.
Mhm.
They're also studying the anti-abortion movement here, and this is third world stuff. If we are so great, if American exceptionalism is an actual real thing, how do we not see this disconnect?
The biggest would be misdirection. I'm going to keep referencing stuff I do on social media because
You should.
the ironies. I'm like I did it on Twitter. I don't remember their names. There's 2 TikTokers that the RNC is losing their mind because they have a management company. That management company got hired by the Democratic National Convention to do work. So you have conservatives and Republicans calling 2 Democrat, they are very liberal Democrat, like party liners, paid operatives and shills. Why are they doing that? They're doing that so that you don't look at the fact that how much does Ben Shapiro make? How much does Steven Crowder make? Steven Crowder turned down a $50 million contract, calling it a slave contract. But
I find I don't want to aside here, but I find Mr. Shapiro particularly fascinating, because if you really do listen to it, and I don't, because I find it maddening, and I have enough health problems, and I'll let somebody else do it. But
What
when
do you
I
think I
do,
have to do?
but when I do hear even the clips, and actually Kristen and I were just talking last night about an interview he did several years ago on the BBC where he stormed out because he got asked a tough question he couldn't answer.
Mm.
I don't find him particularly intelligent.
No, he's perfected the Ben Shapiro method of debate. So, for a little bit for your listeners, my background is in human intelligence, meaning I am a certified interrogator. Like, I'm a Department of Defense certified interrogator. I collect intelligence from human sources. Like, hey, tell me when I was looking for Al Qaeda members, it was because I was sitting in a room with Al Qaeda members going, tell me where your friends and family are. There is a technique that we refer to as rapid fire. Most people refer to it as the Glish-Glosh fallacy, where I'm going to put out 150 different topics and statements and just rapid fire all this information at you, and half of it's wrong. But when you only have enough time to debunk one of my 20 claims, I claim a victory. That's what Ben Shapiro does. He goes out there, he says a whole bunch of nonsensical stuff. And every time you try to debunk his claims, he's putting so much in front of you that you can't in the amount of time that the debate forum or even he will allow. Because you knock down one of his claims, now he's interrupting you with more. He's constantly overflowing the battlefield with disinformation. And then when you don't knock down all of his points, he goes, well, what about this? What about this? What about this? What about this? I win. And people eat it up because it was like, oh, you couldn't counter what he was saying. What he said was nonsense. Because if you say enough nonsense stuff in a way that sounds convincing, the masses will follow you. Listen to any political speech.
Well, it's the Goebbels method, isn't it? The more you repeat the lie, it eventually becomes the truth. But you also, the second part of the Goebbels method, which most people seem to skip over, unfortunately, is the daily outrage.
Mm-hmm.
Today's thing that inflames you, tomorrow's will be 10 times worse, and we will scream it louder. And the day after will be even worse, and we will scream it louder. And all of it, I do think, is distraction. It's Senator Sanders told us during the 2016 campaign that this transfer of wealth to the top 1% has crossed into a different era now. No longer is all the new wealth in the country going to the top 1%. The bottom nine, they're now taking it from the bottom 99. So they're getting all the new wealth and now they're extracting it from us too. But oh my God, there's a trans person walking down the street.
Exactly.
So how much of this is a lack of history education? Or is it just a really, really good job, again, of inflaming and setting the fires and screaming louder than you and me?
It's a little bit of both, because if you look at the cuts that certain far right groups, and especially the Republican Party, want to do for history education, anything that talks about, slavery or mentioning race is considered CRT and it's evil, even though that's a college level course. But
At only a handful of law schools across the country,
exactly,
including law schools that most of these fools went to, by the way, which I always find, Ted Cruz and Hawley and so many of these like to talk about the Northeastern liberal elites. Mr. Cruz went to Harvard, did he not?
Yeah.
Mr. Hawley went to Yale. I believe it.
They are the North or the coastal liberal elites.
Mm-hmm.
Where
yeah,
do you live?
because never miss an opportunity to beat up on California.
Yeah. Most of you would move there in a heartbeat if you got a place, because you'd rather be at the beach.
There's a reason why it's so expensive.
We know Ted Cruz does not like being in Texas. Every time something goes wrong there, he flies to the beach in Cancun. I mean, he wants to be a coastal liberal elite. But
and arguably is one already.
Yeah. But that is a main thing, is the purposeful dumbing down of education. If we move the race component out of, history, if we remove I wish I remembered the place that was like, hey, you should teach the other side of the Holocaust. You mean Nazism? That's the other side of the Holocaust, is the genocidal Nazis. There is no other side we should teach. But that's the idea. If you make people not understand that this bad thing happened in the past and is still happening now, going back to your city, your little community that went to the United Nations on their own, it was a BIPOC community that went there. What is the education focused on? Let's not talk about how we treated BIPOC communities like crap in the past, so you don't realize that we're still doing it.
Which would be the ideas behind Moms for Liberty and
Yep.
et cetera, et cetera.
Moms for Liberty is rebranded Daughters of the Confederacy.
Being sponsored almost exclusively by, and openly, he said it in several different interviews, by folks who want to destroy public education for the purpose of privatizing all of it.
Yep.
But you still get to pay for it with your tax dollars.
Exactly.
The monetization of everything.
Yeah.
Where did we lose that? The country by no means, and I've had to defend this on this program because some folks don't understand nuance, unfortunately. I don't think the country ever was more prosperous, perhaps arguably more equal, or more balanced, or more successful than it was post-World War II. Full implementation of the New Deal, 50s and 60s. So comfortable, in fact, that we could fight and have these internal squabbles, which is a very certainly underrates it, that we could talk about civil rights and voting rights and women's rights, and that we could stand up and say, no, this war is not right. And that the country, I thought, came as close to perhaps as it ever has to looking in the mirror and saying, no, I can still love this country and criticize it. I criticize it because I love it. And yet, all of that's been, how have we forgotten all of that? How have we forgotten that we were the largest industrial power on earth? That we imported more raw materials and exported more finished goods than any other nation on earth? That we rebuilt 2 continents? That we were the largest lending nation on earth? We fed more people. And within Reagan's 8 years, we went from the largest lender to the largest borrower. We went from the largest industrial nation to not being anymore. We continue to refer to ourselves as the richest nation on earth. That would be China. They have the largest middle class on earth, and not just in pure numbers, but per capita, because we sent our middle class over there. These facts are indisputable. They are, in fact, facts. So why are they not out there? Why is there still a solid 30 to arguably 40% of the population that says, yeah, none of that's true?
I think we have to think about that answer really carefully, because they're not denying that we did that during that time. They're denying that we're no longer doing that. In their eyes, we are still the industrial leader of the world. If it was invented in America. It doesn't matter, even if it has a made in China. I mean, look at the fact that we didn't even invent the COVID vaccines, but yet the majority of people in America think that everything wrong with the COVID vaccine was controlled by the American government. I mean,
even though they were created during the Trump regime.
Yeah, but even BioNTech,
which is such an irony. Yeah,
BioNTech's not an American company.
No, it is not.
I think it's German. But again, a large portion of America are like, oh, we made that.
I think it's based in Germany, founded by 2 Turkish immigrants.
I think you're right on that. Yeah. But they still think that we are, the nation with the highest middle class, that we are still the industrial leader, that we're still importing, more raw goods and exporting more finished product. They think all that is still happening, because that is what Republicans are telling them, that we are the greatest nation on earth.
I don't think it's a new concept, unfortunately. I think it goes back to pre-Civil War times. I've made this wink, wink joke, not real joke on this program pretty much every week. It's become rather standard for members of the Democratic Party, people on the left, progressives, Greens, fill in the blank, to say that Republicans want to take us back to the 50s. I would say yes, it's 100% correct, but it would be the 1850s. When we really look at it through a modern lens, the South building up to the Civil War was an oligarchy. It was a fascist oligarchy, come to think of it. So how what do we Brad mentions in the comments, I'll just make it easier. Brad Nelson, and thank you for being here, because I don't recognize your name, Brad, so I think you might be new to the program, so thanks for giving us a try. Can we talk about solutions? Are there solutions that don't necessarily lead us to the second shooting civil war, even though I could make an argument that we're maybe there?
It's not gonna be any solution we do that is peaceful. It's not gonna be overnight. It will probably not be in mine or your lifetime. Because
a biblical phrase that I've used here before, the Israelites were forced to wander the desert for 40 years until the entire generation that had blasphemed God died off, and Moses himself was not allowed to enter into the promised land. Is that what we're talking about? Are we talking about a generation that has to die off before this country can find its footing again?
Possibly. The way I best describe it, because like I said, my background is counter-extremism, counterterrorism. I was sitting with some British fellows that I worked with, and we were talking about, like, the idea of, this was Iraq, what is now called ISIS, back then was ISI. What would we take to get past that for Iraq as a country? And they referenced it best for me. It was the same way they referenced the IRA. It took generations for that. Even when, they had a very open war, not war in the sense of that with the IRA, but, actual fighting between British soldiers and IRA members. It took generations dying out. I do have some hope when I look at Gen Z, and, my kids are all Gen Z. There's kids, I call them kids because, Gen Z is my kids' age. My kids range from 15 to 23. Yeah, I don't seem that old, but yeah, I am. And that gives me hope that, not all boomers are bad, but as that boomer generation, phases out of the population, I guess is the polite way to say it, we lose some of that mindset. But there is that social media war for the minds of Gen Z. Yes, Tucker Carlson is speaking to the boomers, but there is just as many people on TikTok pushing the far right propaganda as there are people like me debunking the far right propaganda. It is a battle for the minds and the education of Gen Z, and that goes back even to the fight of making sure public education is accurate, factual, and readily available to all communities. But if you're looking for a quick solution that doesn't involve violence, and even violence is not a quick solution, there's not one.
So how does it start? Do folks like you, without trying to sound self-important, because God knows I'm not, does it start with what you and I are doing here?
It's a key.
I would assume, I think it's a very, very safe assumption that you are not preaching to the choir as much as I am, because you have a much deeper reach. There are people who are drawn to you, if for no other reason than to yell and scream at their screens about how much they can't stand you. But
I get that more on Facebook.
But how does it start? Does it start with Gen Z standing up and saying, yeah, okay, so we don't know what this New Deal thing is, but we know that the deal we're getting now is a raw one?
Mhm.
Or is it you and I talking into the wind? Is it, and then hoping that we're reaching some other folks and at least giving them something to think about, if not completely changing their points of view? Where
Mhm.
does that start?
So it's a part of people like me and you. You know, I'm technically in the millennial generation. I'm the earliest ages of that. Looking at the generations like Gen Z, and then after them, I mean, but in my lifetime, I'll see Gen Alpha move up into the voting age, and making sure they're properly equipped. You know, media literacy, they were given the best education and the best chance to, when they come into the voting age, to be able to make those changes. Because if we're going with voting our way to slow down fascism, which unless we get ranked choice voting and we start getting, you know, other political parties in there, that's a band-aid. But that's a different discussion than what we're doing now. But Gen Z does give me a lot of hope, because looking at Republicans and looking at the far right, they are terrified of Gen Z. Look at the last midterms. Gen Z saved us.
Mhm.
There's no denying that. Yes, we didn't dominate.
For the first time, and I don't know how many cycles, that it wasn't Black women that saved us.
Yeah. Well, I mean, mostly a lot of it, it was Black Gen Z women that saved us. And they still do. So that was going to be the next part of there, is listening to one, helping with Gen Z having the opportunities to have the media literacy, the education that they need to continue to save us. Republicans are terrified. I mean, as soon as the midterms happen, the cries all over Twitter was, we need to raise the voting age. Like literal Republican politicians stating, we need to amend the Constitution because we lost. Like,
We need to lower the age for work, but raise it to vote.
lower the age for work, lower the age for gun possession, but raise the tobacco age, because remember, that was under Trump too, where he raised it from 18 to 21 and raised the voting age. You're not responsible enough to vote, but you're responsible enough to buy an AR-15.
And carry it openly without a permit,
Exactly.
or training, or insurance, or
Yeah.
or.
But then the next part of it starting is listening to, especially Black women, but BIPOC communities in general. I am a middle-aged white dude. I live in a different America than a BIPOC person. Even if they live next door to me, the house beside mine, I live in a different America than them. No matter what I change, it doesn't matter if it doesn't change their America too for the better. Because that's what we've been doing since this country was founded. We have been changing the country for the better for people like me, the middle-aged white dude. I'm a 40-year-old white male. No matter which party I vote for, yeah, eventually I'm going to get into fascism, but I'll always come out more on top than a Black woman. So I need to listen to Black women, because they're what's going to save us from going full on to fascism, because my dumbass is going to accidentally vote myself into fascism because it's shiny and helps me.
Even when we don't think we're doing it.
Exactly. As much education as I have, I'm going to screw up because the system is stacked in my favor. No matter how I vote, I somewhat win. I don't really, but I at least get the illusion of it. They get to see through the illusion.
6 p.m. Eastern, 1 hour in the books, entering hour number 2. This is the Kennedy Effect, and we are live for the 30th of April, 2023, last day of April. It's already May. Can you believe it? The year is going past incredibly. Time did not pass this quickly when I was younger, except for summers when I was out of school. They went really quickly. See, it does seem, I always had folks older than me and my family, friends, and so on tell me that, boy, time really flies the older that you get. It seems to be 2023 is nearly, we got a third of it down. But anyway, that said, This is the Kennedy Effect, and we are live for the 30th of April, 2023. Big Red Celt is our guest. We enter our second hour. Wherever you might be across the Facebook universe, to the 100, I think 14, 15 places that we've shared the program to this week, please feel free to stay there, continue to watch, listen in the background, watch intently. Stay there. And you can comment and put questions in there. I will do my absolute best to keep a hold of them and to not skip them or miss them. However, if you want me to see everything a little more quickly, come on over to our home group Facebook page called That Other Side of Information. The chat that's been going on has been quite vigorous. I pray that I have not missed anybody's questions. If I did, just give me a shout. I will scroll back and try to find them. But our home group Facebook page, our home, our corner of the Facebook universe for all things surrounding our program, is That Other Side of Information. Hot101.net, our name is our web address. There is no device on the planet that connects to the internet where you cannot listen to Hot101.net. Your desktops, your laptops, your tablets, your phones, Bluetooth speakers, Bluetooth headphones, Bluetooth earbuds. You can Bluetooth it from your phone into the car stereo. And of course, you can tell your smart speaker, hey, Alexa, play Hot101.net. Which of course is America's favorite new game show, because I love to see if I triggered anybody's Alexa in the background. And I did once, and I was very, very pleased with myself because I'm an immature child, and I thought it was really funny that I turned somebody's Alexa on. So you can tell Alexa to play Hot101.net. You do not have to use the web address, though, would you? You can do our apps, Apple App Store for Apple devices, Google Play Store for Android, and the Tune and radio app. Just go up to the search bar and type in hot101.net. And of course, the third leg of our stool, the TCP Media Group, an extremely important and active news source and community source from right here in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, right out of Lancaster, the TCP Media Group. Big Red Celt is our guest. I am humbled and honored to have him. And to welcome him here and to have him become part of our family. For anyone who is new to the program, and it does seem that there are a lot of new folks in the chat, we welcome you. And you are always, always welcome here. And again, if I missed any of your questions, just try to give me an all caps or something down there, or give me a shout, and I will get to I will try to get to your questions. I know Brad mentioned that you really need a moderator in the chat. Well, that would be lovely if I had staff. I don't make any money on this program. In fact, I'm in the hole for this program. All of the technology that we use to put it on has come out of my pocket. We don't make any money. And I think that's sort of kind of emblematic about the movement of left or progressive media, if you will. We're the ones that are doing this on no budget, on phones and tablets and so on, compared to, you know, the billions and billions that are being spent on the right. Remember, the Koch network cycles through more money and has more permanent employees than both parties combined. There are over 1,500 right-wing hate radio stations in this country. There are over 500 right-wing hate Spanish language stations in this country. And we saw the effect of that in 2020 because we saw the Hispanic vote for Republicans go up by anywhere from 4 to 7%, depending on what part of the country you are in. So right-wing Spanish talk is working. So I think it's all the more important that a small voice in the wilderness like us are here, and we're very, very honored to have a large voice in the wilderness with us this week. So let's return to the questioning. I want to give you a question that was in the chat, because I promised people that I will ask questions, and so I will. And if I miss, again, I know I just said it like 4 times in the last couple of minutes, but if I missed any of your questions, put them in the chat again, or give me a shout in all caps or something so that I don't miss it, because the chat has been very, very busy. They're scrolling by, and I will try to catch them all. Shelby asks, Celt, could we pass legislation similar to the New Deal within our current system? I would argue that the Green one of the real strokes of brilliance of the Green New Deal isn't the green part, it's the New Deal part.
Mhm.
I've said on this program, and I say it every single week, and regular listeners, if you're not new to the program, are probably sick of hearing it by now, is that the interesting thing about damn near everything that's wrong with this country or going wrong is that the answers to pretty much all of it, except perhaps this tech-based part of it because it didn't exist, is in our own history. We know how to solve wealth inequality because we did it through the New Deal. We know how to keep 6 big banks who control over 70% of the market in banking, investments, insurance. We know how to keep them from being in multiple sectors because we did it. We know how to develop industry in this country because Alexander Hamilton in the Washington administration showed us how to do it. The answers are in our own history, aren't they?
They are, with some tweaks, because like the New Deal was very beneficial for the country, for people who look like me and people who look like you. Not necessarily everyone, but that gives us a foundation to work off of. It's not, the history lets us know that we don't have to start from scratch. We can take and we learned like this worked. Now maybe let's let people who aren't, Casper experience it also. And that is a part of the Green New Deal that I like a little better than I did the New Deal. It does expand into areas and populations that were completely ignored from previous.
So you mentioned your kids.
Hmm.
By no means do I mean to make them an open topic for the program. They're your children. I'm simply curious, what are the dinner table discussions like, given what you do on social media and what you do for a living, by the way? What are the kitchen table discussions like? Are they, do you talk politics? Do you talk country? Do you talk these social issues, these fake, quote unquote culture war issues? Or do you kind of keep that stuff away? Do you consider those conversations to be part of their education?
No,
do the kids agree with you? Do they think you're wrong? Do they, without trying to be too personal, because it's your family, it's not my family, but what are the kitchen table discussions like?
So we have the discussions, just not at the kitchen table. Dinner is the one time that we do not discuss politics, religion, or anything like that. It's how was your day? But outside of that, it's fair game. My children, so we are a blended family. I have 3 biological children, and I have 3 bonus children. So we have a total of 6 in my family. Like I said, ranges from 13 to 23. So there's not a lot, not 13. Duh. He's turning 15 next month. He's turning 15 in May. If he sees this, he's gonna kill me going.
Oh, you're gonna hear that one.
Yeah,
you're gonna hear that one.
See, that's the thing, is like so many of my kids are like, only 2 of them are below 18 now. So the rest of them, 4 of them are out of the house. They're off into college and things like that. So yeah, 15 and 16 within the household still. But even before then, there are those discussions. Just not while we're eating dinner. Dinner is, how's the family doing? But we have those discussions for my kids in college, in 4-year universities, taking active parts in activism. 2 of them didn't get to vote yet because they just turned 18 this year. But we have those discussions. They talk about what I do. Obviously, there's certain things that we don't talk about. I don't get into the graphic details about Dad's 4 years in Iraq. But like, they know Dad, this is what Dad studies. They watch my TikToks. No matter how many followers I get, Dad is never famous. When we get those discussions, you only have 600, you need 1 million to be famous. Well, it used to be I only needed 100,000. But the irony is, my kids will send me issues that they see in the news and go, Dad, can you make a video about that?
So
Like-
they're a source of inspiration now at this point.
Absolutely. You'll see a lot of my content focusing around protecting trans lives. There's a few reasons for that. Obviously, every person deserves safety and stability in this country. And I have a trans child. One of my kids is trans. So, like a lot of stuff that happens targeting the trans community comes from them. They send me that message going, "Hey, Dad, can you make a video about this?" Okay. I go into research it, or they send me a TikTok of someone pushing trans hate and ask me to debunk it for it. And
There's
then- Yeah.
No, go ahead. Please continue. Go ahead.
But then
Sorry.
before the video goes live, they're watching it going, okay, as a trans person, giving me ideas to make sure that when I put out that message about protecting trans lives, that, trans people are agreeing with it. It's not me speaking for them. It's my kid does not have a following of 600,000. So it's their words for me.
Do you find those discussions an extension of education? And does that education go both ways? They're teaching you at the same time that you're teaching that?
Yes. Yes to both, honestly. It is an extension of education because and that's like the fight against, the rights fight of the schools are indoctrinating our children is the right doesn't want to sit down with their kids at the kitchen table or outside, or like we do outside of dinner and have those discussions. My kids are coming home and talking about how the homophobic kid in class was saying stuff to them. Okay. I have that discussion. Like, how do you respond to that? How do you, because their teachers are going to teach them the facts of, the civil rights movement and things like that. I have to have that. How does this now affect us in our family? How does this affect our neighbors? And then when they hear something that goes against like our family's core beliefs from, random kid in school, someone on the right or someone in social media, I have to have that discussion with them. Well, this is why your dad doesn't believe that. This is why your dad doesn't like that viewpoint. Education is not just dropping your kid off at school and going, okay, teach them and I don't want a part of it. But that really is what many of the Republican pundits are pushing for with their version of education reform, that they should be able to drop their kid off at school and their kid never come home with a tough question that the kid doesn't really understand because they learned something in social studies or civics that, well, Dad, I didn't know that, we killed this many Native or Indigenous Americans. They'd
And
rather
the Canadians are reconciling with that now, actually,
and they're going to
in a much
for
more
years.
open and forceful way than certainly that we are.
But they don't want to have those tough discussions, so they just rather the kid never learn about it.
Brad mentions in the chat has a question. It's a bit specific, but why not? We take questions here. He's wondering if you all, I assume that means you and I, follow particular sources that, don't fade out, I'm reading you, that summarize congressional bills and agendas. I have been very open on this program that the articles that I post on social media, or especially at the Facebook, perhaps being older, Facebook seems to be my go-to first. The Twitter and everything else kind of builds off of that. But my media sources, not specifically for congressional action, but just media sources in general. I happen to post a lot of articles on environmental issues, but I also post the Guardian's best pictures each week in wildlife. I happen to be a very big animal advocate, but my go-to sources are, and I do them purposefully because I do think it's interesting to see the view of the nation outside from ourselves, how people outside the country are viewing us. I have one or two local sources, local Commonwealth state sources, local Lehigh Valley sources. But for national, international, it's the Guardian, the BBC, the CBC, which is Canadian Broadcasting, And then the occasional Washington Post, New York Times. I've used NHK from Japan. I've posted articles from them as well. I do think I think it's very interesting when folks outside of the US turn their eye back toward us. I think there's a different sense of truth that you can get from that. For specific bills in action, can't say I follow anything specifically. It's actually not terribly hard. The congressional website is a bit stale. It's a bit boring, but boring's not always bad. It's also generally nonpartisan. Here's what came up, here's what's in committee, here's what the votes are. I also find that reading legislation can be a lot like reading Shakespeare. You can read it and not have any genuine understanding of what the legislation does. A very simple rule, but unfortunately it's a little too generalized and maybe even a little too cliche, is that if a Republican piece of legislation is titled the Healthcare Protection Act, you can be pretty damn sure that's not what it does. That's a pretty good rule. But that said, not sure if you can see it over my shoulder. Trying to get my finger in the right spot. This sheet under President Kennedy's campaign poster has two big phone numbers on it. First off, it has all of our social media on the bottom. I know that it might be hard to see that unless you can expand your screen. All of our social media is listed here, but there's two phone numbers listed here. The phone number for the program and the other one underneath it, which I think I'm getting my finger under pretty good right now, is the 202-224-3121. That is the congressional switchboard. And it's something that I don't encourage people enough. I was really good for a while, making a real habit of pointing you to the congressional switchboard. The congressional switchboard is an extremely powerful tool. Why? My representative doesn't listen to me. They do more than you think. I would point you back to I would point you back to 2017, when after Trump was installed, Republicans took over both houses of Congress. What's the very first thing they wanted to go after? Second thing after massive tax cuts. They were going to repeal the ACA. And with majorities and control of all three branches of government, they still couldn't do it. And why couldn't they do it? In part because of your phone calls and emails to that number. When you call the congressional switchboard, even if you don't know whom your congressional representatives are, and remember, Congress means both houses. If you just give the operator your zip code, they will send you to your representative and you can place a call there. Your call should be about 30 seconds long, no more than 60. Be polite, be even monotoned. For the most part, the folks answering those calls are unpaid interns, they're college students. They're not part of the machine trying to screw you. And tell them what you think. And your calls made a difference in that most important thing. Republicans had complete control of the federal government and still could not repeal the ACA. So call. If that's the question, if I did get your the understanding of your question right, Brad, I hope I did. Also, Brad asked, are you seeing the chat, by the way? Are you following it on Facebook? Are you seeing the chat? You are. Okay, great. So yes, he is seeing the chat. So continue to throw stuff in there. If I miss a question, perhaps Celt will see it. So have at it. So if that helps answer your question. Celt, who are your media sources? If not specifically, day by day, this bill was introduced and referred to this committee, but who do you go to for media? Who do you trust? Or maybe who do you not trust, but you go to anyway?
See, that's the thing. In my realm of what I do, I can't just rely on who do I trust. Because I'm actually going the opposite. Like, okay, what are the people that I don't trust saying? One, if anybody is familiar with Discord, I have a bot in my Discord that every time a bill is introduced or moves into a new stage, it scrapes the House and the Senate committee or the president's desk and posts an alert. POTUS signed this, House introduced this, House voted on this. It's got its own channel. It goes nonstop. Anything, something happens in Congress or the federal government in general, it's posting a link. It is posting the link to the bill. So it's the Shakespearean language that you have to learn how to decipher yourself.
Right.
But that's another thing is based on my work, I'm reading the bill. I'm reading the source material. And then I am looking at The Guardian. I'm looking at BBC. But I'm also looking at Newsmax, OAN, Fox. What are they saying about it? What is the Republican grandma going to hear that the Protect Healthcare Act supposedly is? Or the Religious Freedom Act. Oh, that just means we're allowed to discriminate on you based on our religious belief. But that's not
They
what
really are
grandma's doing.
masters of that, though, aren't they?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, they really are masters of the. If it's Republican-sponsored legislation, and you can pretty much guarantee it's the opposite of whatever it's named.
Oh, yeah. It's the title of that is the propaganda piece. That's the. Yeah. What was the one that I read?
Bettina mentioned, by the way, ProPublica. She's right about that.
Yes, that's another good one.
ProPublica does really serious investigative journalism. They some of the last, to be honest.
But I would caution, even if you have what you consider some trusted sources, go find two more. If you got one site that you absolutely love, that you like, this is my go-to, find two more. Because even within left-wing sources, I love you leftists, I love you liberals, but I'll debunk you also. The name of the game is factual, true information. Not so long ago, I'm very open about the fact that I am a socialist. I had to debunk a fellow socialist. I'm going to say fellow socialist. If you're familiar with what a tankie is, he is very much a tankie. But the denouncing, I did an entire video on, debunking the propaganda that the left is putting out about the House resolution or the concurrent resolution of denouncing the evils of socialism. Yeah, they did it, but it's a resolution. It doesn't do anything. The House and the Senate said socialism's bad. We knew they were going to say that. But so
I have done this. I have done this before with self-identified Republicans in front of me, and I always tend to call them self-identified because I think that's pretty much what they are, because they can't define it. Really can't talk about what issues make them identify as Republican, so they're just self-identified, whether it was passed down from dad and grandpa, or Fox talked them into whatever, or Limbaugh talked them into whatever. I remember getting a lot of grief on this program when Limbaugh passed about really trying to be truthful about the impact that he had on this country. He was an entertaining listen. If he wasn't, he never would have been able to do what he was able to do. The fact that daddy owned the radio station and gave him his first job also helped. But that said, if he wasn't entertaining to listen to, nobody will listen. Anyway, what I wanted to ask you was, I think I lost where I was going, but I'm going to ask you this. How important do you think that these foreign sources are? I find it very, I find it very insightful when the BBC or the Guardian or the CBC, especially kind of the CBC sometimes, because we share such a long border with Canada, from the outside looking in, when we as Americans go outside and then look back in on ourselves, I find those foreign sources to be very, very important.
So before we do that, Brad, yes, I am a big fan of Under the Desk News and V on TikTok. They are a very good source for here's the facts. Not a lot of political opinion. Obviously, they do occasionally, but that is a good source. And she asked that question in the chat. I've been following Under the Desk News since I first got on TikTok 3 years ago. But for the foreign sources, yes, that is a very good method, because that's another thing that I do within my debunking part of it. We used to play a game in Iraq, as you know, a bunch of people in there. Something big happens. We know the facts because we were involved in it. Let's look and see what Fox is saying. Let's look at what CNN is saying. Let's look at what Stars and Stripes is saying. And then let's look at what BBC is saying and take bets on which one got closest to the facts. We stopped playing after a while when we learned that BBC was going to win. Because, yes, foreign news sources have their own political agendas for their countries. They're not really that interested in, playing the political agenda for a Democrat or a Republican. So yes, if they put a spin on it, it's a spin on it to make the British look better, or make it, how it affects there. But they're more going to report on our stuff based on factual stuff. This is what happened. This is what the cause was. This is the effect. Less of, protecting Healthcare Act. They're going to talk about what's in the bill.
Mhm.
So you're going to see a lot more factual reporting, less opinion based from foreign sources than you will internal. But if you read the BBC about what's going on within Britain, you realize it's CNN and Fox News, but for Britain. So those are good. Be cautious of news sources that their base language is different than English. The only reason I say that's nothing against them. They're not necessarily bad, but like my Arabic is very bad at this point. But I can pretty much listen to Al Jazeera and know what's going on in the world. What's reported in Al Jazeera Arabic is slightly different than you hear in Al Jazeera English. Just a heads up. I don't know how it is for other languages, but you will see certain spin gets put on things when it's not their majority audience is not the English speaker, because number of times that I heard from the word Ameriki to kafir, which if you don't know, kafir in Arabic is infidel. Same sentence, two different words. So be cautious on that one. Like, if you can listen in the original language or have someone translate it for you, you're going to get a better understanding of what that article is saying than the English translation.
In a similar vein to that, I've mentioned on the program quite a lot, the Canadian government is running a continuous exercise throughout all of its ministries. And if you're not familiar with the term, folks, the Ministry of Defense, the Ministry of, we call them departments here, the Department of Defense, the Department of Labor, the Department of Education. They're ministries in a parliamentary system. Throughout all of the Canadian government, throughout all its ministries, they are running a continuous exercise, studying and planning for and developing policies for the Canadian response, not to if, but when democracy fails in the United States. What does that say to you?
I kind of saw it coming, to be honest. Especially with the people who have been petitioning, the Canadian government for setting up asylum program for different communities of Americans, the trans, the LGBTQIA plus communities, even BIPOC communities, going like, hey, when this falls, or these issues happen, could you take in asylum seekers, refugees? People have been pushing that. And in reality, again, going back to how you talked about history teaches us, Canada has been that system for small errors in democracy, like Canada taking in, I don't want to say draft dodgers because, I don't believe in a draft, but I believe in a voluntary military. But like, look at Vietnam. Canada taking in people who were like, I'm a conscientious objector. I want to be, I don't want to be drafted. They've run this before. They've had these contingencies before, because during Vietnam, when they started seeing a few influx in there, they expected the numbers were going to be a lot higher trying to get into Canada for it.
When I first heard about that, I found it shocking at first, when I very first heard it, found it very, very shocking that our neighbors to the north were planning for the demise of this country. But then again, or at least if you don't want to call it a demise, at least the end of the American experiment, we could put it that way. But then the more that you think about it, you think to yourselves, well, that's very prudent. And I can certainly see why they're doing it. And is that realization, is that sort of settling into that thought pattern in and of itself alarming?
To me, because of what I do, no, I hate to say it. I am jaded on a lot of different subjects. Not to say that I'm callous to it, but it gets to me watching some of the stuff that I see, but it's not alarming. It's from the beginning of the foundation of our country. There have been the extremist fringes attempting to take total and full control since while we were still colonies. It's going to happen eventually, unless some major changes happen. And I'll be honest, I don't know if I'm optimistic that those changes are going to happen.
Why do you think that the United States, even some progressives, self-identified progressives, are so hesitant, if not directly opposed, to the idea or the ideal that we can learn from other nations? The happiest and most well-run nations on the earth right now, by every measure, are the Scandinavian countries: Sweden, Finland, Norway, Denmark. They have the highest life expectancies, most equal economies, social democratic countries, by the way, very heavily regulated, yet capitalist societies, huge social safety net. The Finns have almost ended their homeless problem by simply giving them housing because they've realized it was cheaper. The Swedes, you can't manufacture an internal combustion engine anymore in Sweden. The closest you can have is a hybrid. The Germans are creating more residential solar electricity than they can use. They're selling it. But the Scandinavian lowland countries are the happiest and most well run on earth. And I think history shows us really that when the Western European continent following World War II had no functioning governments, many of the principles that they took from the United States after that and from the New Deal. So why are we so abstinent toward learning from other nations?
Because from birth, we're ingrained into, it is ingrained into us that American culture is we know best. American exceptionalism has been even beaten into progressives so much that it is a hard thing to shake. To be honest, like I said, I'm a socialist. I'm a leftist. I have not always been a socialist or a leftist. I used to identify as a moderate. And then as you move from it, you still have those thoughts of like, well, we can do it this way. Well, every other country in the world has done it this way, and it's been a great success for them. But we have been taught that we are the innovators. We are, the leaders of democracy. I mean, we have people who think that America invented democracy. We legitimately have people who don't know about Greek history, Greek, Roman, and all that. America invented democracy. I get that in my comment section. When I say I'm a socialist, well, America, you wouldn't have democracy without America. Really? We're the only country in the world with democracy. But it is taught into us and it is ingrained in. That's the thing about propaganda and disinformation. Once it takes a hold, it is easier to make than it is to counter. It is easier to spread than it is to stop the spread. And we have been given this propaganda since our birth, for me, 40 years as of February, that America knows best. I know it's a lie, but occasionally it peeks up in the back of your brain.
Did you used to watch The Newsroom?
Yeah.
So the opening scene to that, where Jeff Daniels' character, the young woman stands up and, can you tell us why America's the greatest nation on earth? And he finally, he starts spewing some sort of BS thing. And then the moderator pushes just a tiny, tiny bit. And he goes, you know what, the truth, because we're not. We never have. And that rant, I think, should be, it is a masterful piece of acting and writing and just art in general, and probably should be mandatory in every classroom in the country. But can you be, it would seem to me that the two are not mutually exclusive. You can be a great nation and still say, hey, we could do better with that. We could do better on that. We could learn, hey, this thing's working. Maybe we should consider that.
That is a excellent
You can do
point.
both, can't you?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Because one of the things that I've said in my social media careers, every time I come out and I criticize something about America, that I say, we have a problem with this, we have a problem with that, I call them cosplatriots. Blending of cosplay and patriotic. They're cosplaying patriots, cosplatriots. I didn't invent it. I heard it from someone. I don't remember who. So whoever did invented that, you have full credit for it. But I'm sorry, I don't remember who I first heard it from. Because they come in there and they act like you cannot criticize America at all and love your country. I love my country. I love America. That's why I want it to do better. That's why I want things like wealth inequality to be fixed. That's why why are we having police officers kill people of color and Black people so much? Like, that is a problem in America. If I love America, I want his problems to be fixed. We talk about all the time that if you love your child, you correct them when they do something wrong so they learn. Why do we not apply that to loving our country? If I love America, why do I not get to look at our government and go, you screwed up. This is bad. We need to fix this. If you want America to be the best country in the world, you have to fix the problems with it. You can't just say we're the best.
The opposite of love is not hate. It's apathy.
Correct.
Apathy, where you don't care at all. So I do find it very hard to understand why this is such a difficult concept. That because I love my nation, that I want it to be better, that I criticize it when I think something's wrong, and that I want it to be better. If I sat back and said absolutely nothing, that would be more worrisome, because I don't care.
Yeah. If I loved my kids, I want to make sure that when they're little, they don't put their hand on the hot stove.
And I've talked about that as the difference between dumb and stupid. Dumb is when you do it the first time because you didn't know what was going to happen.
Yeah.
Stupid is when you do it again.
Exactly.
Or do it repeatedly.
But as a nation, we keep doing the same stupid stuff over and over again.
Right.
We learned it didn't work.
How does that blend into the thought? And tell me if you think I'm even wrong. there's a very large, I think one of the driving emotional factors on the right is this very, very false narrative to me, at least in my opinion. Again, tell me, disagree. That part of why I think the right is so successful is they have segmented so much of us down into smaller and smaller and smaller pieces so that it becomes harder and harder to defend yourself. Even science tells us that probably at most 3% of the population is trans. So they're easy targets. 3%, put 100 people in the room, 97 against 3 are pretty bad odds. Part of that segmentation, I believe, is the thought that, I don't think it's a true thought, but a thought that is given out, especially on the right, that if that group over there is gaining anything, they must be taking it from you. So that their success is based on your failure, not that we all succeed together. Is that something when you get feedback on your work or the comments or whatever, does that seem to be an underlying feeling or emotion or thought that, like, well, black folk can't do better because they must be taking something from me, when in fact we all do better when we all do better?
That is absolutely what's being pushed, because when you look at, like, going back to the trans movement, it is a small community, it is a small target. So they've picked that for the purposeful reason that, if only 3%, the high end number, 3% of the country is trans, the odds of running and having a trans person who is directly in your life that you can empathize with as a human by seeing them is low. They can demonize them because does everyone in this country know a trans person? You should, more than likely you do, but you don't. But yes, that is it, because the argument they have there is, you hear it from the TERFs, the trans exclusionary radical feminists. Trans people getting rights are taking away rights from women. That is literally their argument right now, that by us allowing, trans women to go into a bathroom that corresponds with their gender identity, we are taking away the safe space of women. That's been the argument all along. And I hate to say it, it's because we live in a very strong capitalist society without those social safety nets. Because the reality is, in a capitalist society, I get better by taking away from someone else. Elon Musk makes more money by taking away from us. So we are trained that the way you get more is you take it from someone else. If somebody else makes, $100,000, you can't make that $100,000.
You can't rob, and the diametrically opposed thoughts that you can't rob the bank.
Yeah.
But the bank can take from you because the billionaire owns the bank.
Listen to, if you want to see the idea, like, they're not talking about rights, but listen to hustle culture people. I don't work a 9 to 5. I have my side hustle. Those people, they will specifically tell you, and I have a video about it, where a guy says in there, you get more by outworking the person beside you. Meaning you get more because you take it before that person gets it. We have conditioned Americans to believe in this hustle culture, but it doesn't just apply to money. It applies to every aspect of our lives. You want more rights, you have to take them from someone else. And the same thing back in the civil rights movement. There are those interviews that they did with random white person outside of a Piggly Wiggly back in the 50s, 60s. I don't think it's right that, I'm not going to say the N-word, moved into our neighborhood because I wanted this. All of it was, if this person gets rights and can live in the same neighborhood as me, what do I lose?
Santo in the chat asks an extremely powerful question. And I missed it originally, but I scrolled back and I found it. Is America no longer the leader of the free world in your estimation?
I don't think we ever were. To be honest, we claimed that title. But okay, so except for
Perhaps
when,
immediately after World War II,
yeah.
when a good section of the planet was decimated.
But even then, like one of the things that I love about World War II, especially like the American propaganda about it, is we're not the reason the Allies won World War II. We're not the Soviets. I mean, if you take us out of the equation, the Soviets still would have won World War II. It just would have taken them a lot longer. But the idea that it goes back to we're the leader of the free world. Well, are we the only country with democracy? Are we the only country you have freedom of speech because you live in America? Do I not have freedom of speech in Britain? Do I not have freedom of speech in Germany, France, Italy? I do. Heck, I have freedom of speech in Iraq, where most people think that you don't. Like, Iraq votes, they have a parliament, they have democracy. They don't have a king. I mean, okay, you want to talk about colonial times when Britain was legit under a monarchy, not the figurehead monarchy. Yeah, they didn't have much freedom then. Anytime you have a monarchy, you're not going to have that freedom. But, most countries have been keeping, again, like Norway, the Icelandic, Norwegian, Finland, all those countries there. Are they not free?
Would argue they're more free.
Same. Like, a person living in Norway, like you mentioned, has the higher
Are they
happiness
banning
index.
books are they banning books in Norway and Iceland?
Yeah.
Sweden, Finland, Denmark, Norway?
I mean, we're not the first country that allowed gay marriage either.
No.
Not by the long shot. We're not the first country. We're not the first country that said, you know what? Because we still haven't done this. Let's not lock up people for smoking a plant in their house.
Or growing it.
Yeah, you can buy tobacco, but this plant is bad. I mean, we have Americans who travel to Amsterdam because they want to smoke pot legally.
Abortion is more free, open, and legal in Ireland.
Yeah.
One of the most intensely Catholic countries on the planet, the Republic of Ireland, than it is here.
So I would argue, we were quote unquote free, but even during those times where we were claiming that we were the leader of the free world, Black people couldn't vote, women couldn't vote. Like, okay, Black people couldn't drink out of the same water fountain as me while we were claiming we were the leader of the free world. I don't think we've ever been the leader. The only time we've been a leader of is, like you said, mass shootings, wealth inequality, banning of books. We're the leader of that at this point.
Denial of education, student debt, medical debt.
Oh yeah. How are we the leader of the free world that literally getting sick can destroy your life? Not medically. You could be cured. You'll never financially recover from it. There's a meme, like, to the point where our medical system is so screwed up. There's a meme that it was a meme because it was a Twitter interaction, posted their ambulance ride bill. And there's like, I can't believe it costs this much. And someone actually commented, the ambulance is not your taxi to the hospital. Well, what the hell is it then? Like, we have people who believe that, you should not take an ambulance unless you've gotten hit by an IED on the side of the road. You need to be
spoke
like
about the side hustle economy. There are Uber and Lyft drivers who have to put in their online. I've never used it and I won't use it, so I don't exactly know how their driver profiles are set up, but they have to put in there that they are not an emergency vehicle, because people call Uber to go to the emergency room, because at least that might only be $30 instead of the 3,000 that an EMT might be.
Exactly. Like,
and let's remember too, second or third largest grocer in the country is Dollar General.
Mhm.
And the fourth highest amount of healthcare dollars are turned over through GoFundMe.
There's a College Humor sketch where it's the CEO. They always used to do this thing of like the CEO of Tinder, the CEO of GoFundMe. And the entire joke of that was him realizing that everything on GoFundMe was just medical depression. That it
Medical
wasn't
debt.
like, yeah, it's like, hey, let's go. He even read one, it's all fake, obviously, of let's go surfing in Mexico while my friend gets cancer treatment. Because that's all you see. My wife, before we got married, she got diagnosed with a chronic illness. I've been open about it. I had to turn as a social media influencer before we got married, before I could put her on my health insurance. I had to turn to TikTok. Like, to be honest, TikTok was the reason my wife was able to get medical treatment for osteomyelitis, a chronic bone infection that she will have for the rest of her life. And I turned, and this was back when I had a following of like 20, 30,000, like very early in the year. She's been fighting it since then. Like, the reason I have a merch page and a Patreon was I started those as a way to help pay my wife's medical bills when she was just my girlfriend. And it's, yeah, Brad just said in chat, I remember when you did that, buddy. And to this day, like, now we have insurance, but to this day, like, my Patreon fund pays the copays for her insurance, because even with that, yep, I can, without insurance, her prescriptions alone were in the thousands of dollars per month. Per month, thousands of dollars for insurance. With insurance, they give her the same prescription for $7.50. That's how messed up. Like, we were literally using GoodRx to
I've
get
used
her
it.
insurance from $500 to $300.
I've used it. I use it all the time. I haven't had health insurance in probably, it'll be a year soon. Yeah.
Yeah.
And before that, during the pandemic, I didn't have it at all. We're the only nation, by the way, folks, during the pandemic, where the number of uninsured people grew. We're the only nation. Do you know how many folks? I'll ask this rhetorically to the global audience. How many people in Germany declared bankruptcy due to medical debt during the pandemic? 0. How many in Canada? 0. Many in the UK, even with the Conservative Party's very open efforts to privatize the National Health Service. 0. We're the only country. We're the only ones where people lost everything because they got sick. Just because they got sick. Brad mentioned in the chat that the United States just carries the biggest stick. Is our largest reason for relevance on the world stage our military?
One of. When we spend, what is it, more on our military budget than the next, I think it's 4 nations combined.
It's about
Or
10
maybe-
or 12.
Is it 10 or 12 now? Crap.
Mhm.
I should know this.
And
I was in the military.
the latest military budget, I believe, is in the neighborhood of $850 billion. At least 40 billion more than the DoD itself was asking for. Senator Sanders has told us that the real, if you bring in the secondary costs of it, it's really more about $1.4 trillion. And perhaps one of the most prescient things that Speaker Pelosi ever said was, show me a budget and show me your budget and I'll know your priorities.
Mhm.
And the defense, President Eisenhower warned us of this, and we didn't listen.
We
Beware
never listened.
military industrial complex. And of course, I think it was the F-35, the utilitarian fighter jet that all branches were going to use. That I am blanking on the company that builds it.
I don't remember either.
I'm blanking on the company that builds it. I almost said Raytheon, but that's not right. Made sure that they built at least one part of that. Every single congressional district had a piece, so that no one could vote against it, because they'd be cutting jobs. So is that really what we've boiled down to now? Is that what the United States is boiled down to now? That we're the ones with the nuclear weapons.
On an international stage, that yes, and we're willing to buy your stuff. Whatever cheap stuff you want to import into our country, we'll buy it. That's our two main goals on an international stage, and our two main relevances. We'll buy your oil. We'll buy your electronic
While we
gadgets.
ship our own, while we drill and ship our own offshore, we'll import yours.
Yep. And we'll talk about how great we are for, leaders of freedom and civil rights, while we'll buy stuff made in sweatshops and car parts made in literal like slave camps.
I think there's a lot of things that you and I have touched on that talk about the degradation of this country. And I continue to believe that all of these things can be solved. And I happen to think that history shows us how to do it. But is there a greater example? I mean, there's a lot of examples, but I'm wondering is there a greater example of the fetishization of the pursuit of wealth than the fact that we generate from underneath our own feet enough fossil fuel energy to run the country, but yet we export it overseas and then import the same stuff back in from different countries? Is there anything more, just descriptive to where the United States is after almost 50 years of this? Because really the Reagan Revolution a bit started with Nixon, but is there anything that describes how low this country has sunk than the fact that we would drill these things right out from under our feet, ship it overseas, and then import the very same thing back in from just different countries?
In the early 2000s, there was a comedian, I don't remember his name, who made the observation that you're on a highway and you see a log truck traveling west while a log truck passes it traveling east. That is what we're doing. We're making treaties to buy oil from countries so that we can put a military base in their country, while agreeing to sell oil to a different country on the understanding that we'll give them a better price if they let us put a military base in their country. That's what we're doing.
While the Chinese build roads and villages and water systems and schools.
Yes.
As they continue to take over Africa without firing a shot.
Yeah.
And a good part of South America, by the way.
Or our Midwest, by just buying it.
By buying the property, right?
Buying our farmland. Because
by buying.
That's where we've gotten to. Of everyone constantly asks, well, if we did universal health care, where would we get the money? The same place that I get the money for my health care, since I'm a disabled veteran. We take it from the military budget.
7 p.m. Eastern Time, 2 in the books, entering our third hour of the Kennedy Effect, live with you for April 30th, 2023, the last day of April. Tomorrow is May Day, World Workers' Day. Hope you celebrate or remember or give it a passing thought somewhere along the way. Tomorrow is May Day. And so where will I be celebrating International Workers' Day? I'll be at work, as most of you will be too. But we 2 down, at least 1 to go. Celt, stay as long as you wish. You let me know when you need to get going. not being held hostage here by any means. So just, you let me know. So entering our third hour, to everyone across the Facebook universe who has been kind enough to share our program or allow us to appear in your page, your group, your own personal timeline, thank you. We simply could not do it without you. Please continue to watch, listen, and learn. Discuss with us, drop comments in. I'll do my best to keep up with the comments that are coming in from the other places that we have shared. But if you want to come over to our home group Facebook page, That Other Side of Information, I invite you to do so. So many new names in our chat tonight, and obviously Celt is the reason for that. I hope that you have enjoyed what we try to do here and will continue to enjoy it as long as we are on the air, and that you will visit us again every single week and become part of our listening family and viewing family as well. You are all welcome here. Again, it's not always about agreeing on everything. It's about having the discussion. A humble little program like ours, I hope, will find a way into your weekly routine. So to all the new faces and new names that I have seen in the chat tonight who are regular followers of Celt, I welcome you. I thank you for giving us a chance, and I hope you will continue to come back and be a part of our program. To our friends at hot101.net, the global innovator, originator of global internet radio, thank you for allowing us into your lives yet again on this Sunday. And to our listeners actually in the Australia, New Zealand area, where we do have quite a large number of listeners. It's already Monday for you. You're probably listening at work. Thank you for allowing us to be part of your day. Yet again, if you don't know how to listen to hot101.net, it's very simple. Our name is our web address, Apple App Store, Google Play Store for Android, and the TuneIn radio app. And you can tell Alexa to play hot101.net and the TCP Media Group from right here, the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. Hour 3 begins right now, and we will open the phone line as long as Celt's all right with it. We will open up the phone line shortly. I'll put the phone line on the screen. Brad put 2 questions in. I want to get to them quickly. Oh, darn it. Oh, he wanted me to ask about, and perhaps it's a good way to start a third hour, is your thoughts on the Republican majority, the slim House majority, holding the nation hostage over the debt ceiling discussions.
That is becoming the tale as old as time. Every single year, and unfortunately, once.
And by the way, Republicans raised the debt ceiling during the Trump regime 3 or 4 times with no debate. They just did it.
But unfortunately, once this is going to be critique of all politicians everywhere. Once a politician finds a technique that works for them, they kind of stick with it. And holding the nation hostage, holding millions of federal employees and people on things like Social Security and SSI and all sorts of federal programs hostage for your little pet projects is effective. It seems almost every year we get to the deadline of, will the government still keep working? Will the government shut down for last minute saves? But I mean, as much as I would like to act surprised, I'm not anymore. We're going to see that until something is changed within policy that means that you can no longer do that. Personally, I believe that you haven't passed a budget by such and such time. The sergeant of arms rounds you up, puts you in that chamber, and locks the door. You can go home once you've passed a budget. I don't care what's going on in your life.
I don't even know the last time a formal budget was passed by Congress. I want to say it was, might go back to the W. Bush administration. We use these continuing resolutions.
Exactly.
I don't know the last time an actual formal budget. Brad also asked, and I think this is an interesting question, and one that you might not even be able to answer.
I know which one you're about to ask.
Well, I'm going to ask it for the purview of the audience. By the way, the top of the hour, I should have mentioned, please forgive me, I should have mentioned, if you missed any of our programs so far, any of the first 2 hours, go to our YouTube channel. It is also called That Other Side of Information. We would love it if you gave us a like or subscribe, but my dear friend of 2 decades now and the technical producer of this program, George, will take the video from this, convert it to YouTube, and post it there. It's usually there by Tuesday or Wednesday. To be honest, George usually does it before he goes to bed tonight, but I try to give him some space and a little bit of time that he doesn't have to rush and do it so damn fast. Go to our YouTube channel, That Other Side of Information. If you're new to the program, every single program we have ever done is right there. All 4 years of them are right there. This one will be there as well, probably by Tuesday or Wednesday. So if you missed any of it, you can always go to our YouTube channel, That Other Side of Information. So forgive me, I forgot to mention that at the top of the hour. You know what question's coming, but for the audience, I'm going to read it anyway. Brad asks, what interrogation techniques can we apply to conversations with quote unquote the righties?
Yeah, I saw
I
that
would say
one.
the
and I
MAGAs even more so, but
I saw that one and I was like, okay, well, let's be
gosh,
fair.
how do I
don't
answer
know.
that one?
Yeah, that's a good question. So there are multiple different interrogation approaches. One of the most effective is simple we know all. Simple we know all is you go into from the interrogation world, and then I'll get into how you can apply it to your debates with MAGA. Is you go into that interrogation booth with, I know who you are, I know all this stuff. Even if you don't, you're faking it with enough information to be like, what's your name? My name's Justin. BS, your name's this. Like when they lie, you can call out every single one of their lies. Again, even if you have to fake it, sometimes you take a risk and you call their bluff. Like, really, is that your final answer? And they start questioning. Well, he knew this, this, and this. So when you apply that to, this is kind of a cop-out answer, but when you apply that to debates with MAGA, go in knowing what you're talking about. If you don't know, don't make crap up, because they will catch you in that, just like you catch them when they make up stuff. You want to, like they flood us with propaganda, lies, and disinformation, you need to flood them back with the facts, debunking their stuff. The majority of people who come out of cults do that when they see that what the cult leader is telling them is not true. They experience the real world. Like, oh, not everyone is a demon with horns coming out of their head. Not everyone is actively like killing and eating babies. Obviously.
Grooming them, for God's sake.
Yeah. And that's what we started seeing with the QAnon and MAGA groups, was when people were debunking their stuff and then they were seeing none of these prophecies come to fruition, going, wait, maybe this isn't real. And there are times, just like an interrogation, there are times to do emotional techniques. So in interrogation, you have emotional fear, emotional love. Those are the two main emotion techniques you do. We call it like fear up, fear down. Emotional love of family, friends, country, whatever. You can play to those when you're talking with them. You don't necessarily have to go in with fear up. Or pride and ego is another technique where you're boosting someone's pride and ego in an interrogation booth, or you're mocking the crap out of them. Yes, there's times that you'll see, if you follow me on Facebook and Twitter, I'm a lot more open about my snark and a-holishness. Since we're on the radio, I don't know if I can cuss. I think
technically yes, we just don't.
Okay. I remember when I was on the Villains Guild or the Villains View.
I do think
yeah, don't.
yeah, it's a different, he's happy to let it fly. We are not monitored and or governed by the FCC, but we do generally stick to that anyway. We do actually have kids that listen, and I forget who. Someone's going to tell me in the chat. They'll correct me. This is the kind of time I miss George, because he usually Googles it and throws it right back at me and corrects me. I forget who the one that said that the cursing is the tool of the foolish. I can't remember who it is, but I mean, I still curse for effect, of course. Occasion I do let it slip. It happens. If you're a regular listener, I have let them fly occasionally when I get myself all worked up, but generally speaking,
I'm kind of the same way. Like, I try to take my video content, is even though the subject I'm talking about, my videos, I want to be family friendly-ish as best I can for the subject matter. Yes, I'm talking about violent extremism and genocide and things like that, but I have teachers that tell me that they take some of my videos and put it in their high school level civics classes or history classes about current events. So yeah, I do want to kind of remove that there. But like if you see me on Facebook or Twitter, that I'm a lot more open about that. That's not my video content. I will come out and mock a troll. Occasionally I have a video series that I do called Fun with Trolls. Those are mostly you give me a death threat. You give me a death threat, I'm gonna have fun with you. But you don't always have to, when you're going into discussions with the right, yeah, you don't always have to mock them. In fact, sometimes that's very counterproductive if you're actually working in an attempt to change their mind. If I come in and I start talking to you and I disprove it and I say, you're an idiot, you're not, you've tuned out everything I said before that point, and you tuned out everything I said after that point. So you can do that if you want. That's fine. You don't owe anyone a discussion. You don't owe anyone a debate. You don't owe anyone who is not polite to you politeness. You're not going to change their mind. That's fine. So,
Even
but also,
with even with all the social media, and look, we're using it right now. I mean, even 10 years ago, we couldn't do what we're doing now. And if we did, it would have cost us a hell of a lot more money, and I'm not sure we ever would have had the broadband to do it. But I think even a decade ago, we couldn't be doing what we're doing right now.
no, a decade ago,
You've chosen to do what you do in these pre-recorded. The production value, by the way, is off the charts. I think one of the reasons I do live is because I don't have to do huge production value. But I mean, I'm just here in my second bedroom. This is just curtains and posters and stuff. And that was a gift from my in-laws, my on-air sign there. But
if I were to pull the
why do you-
curtain back,
why is it that you chose to do it this? Why don't you do what I do? Why don't you do live radio? Why don't you do extended, give and take the questions, the comments, the calls? And I don't ask that as a criticism. I'm asking it as just a general, why is it the short video bit instead of, I'm an old fashioned guy. I believe in terrestrial radio. If terrestrial radio didn't still work and have a place, there wouldn't be 2,000 right-wing hate radio stations, English and Spanish, and Christo fascist for that matter, on top of those 2,000. They wouldn't be out there. So what is it about the short video clip as opposed to the long form, take phone calls, take questions, get yelled at in real time kind of radio format that does it for you, or that you thought was the best way?
So in reality, that's just how I got started on social media. I started on TikTok. I started on TikTok back when you had 60 seconds. That was the end of the line. You could not. 61 seconds was not an option. You had to, and that's part of the reason why. One of the reasons why people see my stuff is so clipped, where I say something, then I pause the video. I didn't have time for those type sounds, because I had 60 seconds to take what Tucker Carlson was saying on Fox News, play the clip showing what he's saying as the prompt so people know what I'm talking about. Now I have 45 seconds because I showed 15 seconds of Tucker talking. I had 60 seconds to fully expose a person giving death threats. But that was really just how I started. Like I said, I went into social media as I'm going to have fun recording the random stuff that I cook in my kitchen because I'm bored and I want to, that's my stress relief. My first video ever was a video. It was a duet, the TikTok feature where you take somebody's video and you film your video beside it and they both play side by side. Where their video, it was a military person. She was doing how do you deal with civilians being in the military? And she's holding a flask, and it's from Sweeney Todd, the Pirelli's Miracle Elixir sound. And she's joking about the miracle elixirs of the flask. And I was sitting outside. I've since taken this video down because it's that cringe. Sitting outside, like holding a flask, but my flask is a 64-ounce flask. It's a novelty flask that my wife got me. And my caption for it was, how do I deal with reverting back to being a civilian. That was my first ever TikTok video, a joke video like that. So I came into it, like I said, with, that person I was following got a death threat. I moved into this. So my medium was short form videos. That's the first medium that I entered. Years ago, my kids ran a YouTube channel of them doing stuff where dad basically filmed for them, but it never went anywhere. It's just my kids, when they were like, 10, wanted to do silly stuff on YouTube just so they could say to their classmates. So I never had like a long form video. TikTok has the ability to go live. And at the very beginning, I would go live. But even then, then my wife, shortly after me starting TikTok, I started in 2020, September. My wife started having health issues, December 2020. Very shortly after that, my free time gone. I particularly picked today because my kids are with my ex this week. So like the rest of the house is my wife, the dog, and the cat. So
Do you think there's still a place for, we do have a phone call, going to get to you in just a second. Hang on. Do you think there is still a place for terrestrial radio?
yes, that is a medium out there. There is still a place. Now, a future for it, I don't know. Like personally, I don't listen to the radio that much in the car. I listen to podcasts. I listen to music that I've saved through Spotify or Apple Music on my phone. Granted, as much as, I look like the Appalachian country boy, I listen to goth industrial music. My wife does not. So like when I am driving, it's Ministry, Combi Christ. Like, I'm not getting that on the radio. Celt is not listening to iHeartRadio to get,
No. Sirius XM, but
yes.
not iHeart. Yeah.
Yeah. But
Area code 443. Your first name and where are you calling from, please? Ooh, are you there? I'm not hearing anything.
I'm not either.
Might have to. Uh-oh. All right. I might have to refresh the Google Voice. Oh, you free programs. Darn you.
Yeah. But there is something I want to say
It's the program that fits in the budget. No, go ahead, please.
about debates while we were talking about that. Because like I do agree with you about terrestrial radio. I am not a fan of debates. And it's nothing against the free sharing of idea debates, things like that. There comes a point in a person's size with social media following. Like I said, if I do TikTok live, I have the ability to go live just like we're doing now on TikTok, 637,000 followers. I can go live and I can get 10,000 people watching me live. I can do a debate. I can bring a guest on just like we're doing now and have them beside me and we exchange free flow of ideas. I have to be cautious with that. I've now taken a person who has the idea that my trans child should not exist and given them a platform, even if it's only for an hour, that has access to over 600,000 people. If I don't handle that properly, which during a debate without a moderator, like if me and you were debating, we're discussing. So we're taking turns for each other to talk. Every debate you see online nowadays, you see it on Twitch and things like that. We're talking over each other. And then at the end of it, I'm taking 30-second to 1-minute clips and I'm cutting them and putting them in my short form media to spread my platform, claiming I won the debate, while the opposition is doing the exact same thing. So a viewpoint for terrestrial radio, yes. Viewpoint for short form. If you're going to do debates, you better go into it knowing your stuff 100% and how to debate.
Let me say something to the audience right now. The phone line technically is open. Now, we had a power outage here at the house in the neighborhood around, I don't know, 8 o'clock this morning, I think it was. And it was just a flick, but it shut everything down. The kind of fun stuff, where the I'm going to date myself now, Celt, where the VCR clock would blink 12, that kind of thing. The oven clock was blinking, everything went, including this computer. Now I rebooted everything around 4:15-ish. Tested everything and everything was fine. I have a feeling that might be why we couldn't hear the caller. I just refreshed Google Voice again, and you may have heard the sound of a phone ringing over Celt's last answer. That was me testing it again. Please feel free to try, but if we can't hear you, then I don't have a better explanation. It's a free program. It's the only reason I use it. There are programs out there for shows like ours where we can click one button and immediately broadcast live to as many as 8 different platforms. There are phone software where we could take callers in queue. I can see right where they're calling from and what they want to talk about and all this stuff. There's no budget for any of it. None. I've probably spent about $5,000 on this program and I haven't made a dime of it back because I wanted to do this and because I thought it was important, especially in a very, I hate to borrow the phrase, but a very purple state like Pennsylvania. We continue, to the best of my knowledge, no one has corrected me. You are free to correct me if I am wrong. We remain the only live interactive progressive media in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. And if you are even passively aware of national electoral politics, you know how important Pennsylvania is. And we are the only live interactive progressive media here, period. Republicans have called. I've invited more Republicans on this program than I can count. They simply won't come. The ones that have called to disagree with me, we've had civil, wonderful conversations and walked away not necessarily agreeing at the end, but having each of us say, well, at least we now have something more to think about. And it leads me into a question that I want to ask you. The week before we celebrated our 4th anniversary, the woman who's responsible for this program, April Riddick, who owns a chunk of Hot 101 and got me back on the air. I've been doing radio since I was literally in high school. And live radio, by the way, since high school. I asked her if she thought that our program was making a difference. Now, the very first show we did, I think we were only on Facebook. We shared it to like 8 or 12 different places. We weren't on the radio anywhere. That was it. That's all we did. And I struggled through 2 hours. I think we shared 115 places today. We have TikTok, we have the YouTube channel, we have Patreon, I'm cheating, I'm looking around, I'm cheating. We have Twitter, Instagram, we have hot101.net, we have TCP, and about 250,000 people that we reach worldwide each week. And I asked April, who is a radio veteran herself, why don't we do more? And she said, because you're boring. And she said, boring in not a bad way. I don't mean it as a criticism. She said, because you won't call people names. You don't stand on top of the table and scream and belittle people, and you don't lie. The sad truth is that you'd probably have 10 times the listeners if you did all of those things. You don't do them either. Why? I would hope for the same reason, but it's not my answer to give you. Why? You could yell and scream and hold guns and you could lie through your teeth about the people on the right, but you don't. Why?
Me and Bo of the Fifth Column. He's a big YouTuber when he was.
So I've invited here too, by the way.
Oh, have you?
He's not responded to me. I've tried to reach him about 1,000 different ways.
I'll send him a message.
I'm hoping that your experience here at the end you'll say that was a lot of fun and we should.
Oh, I'm having a blast.
My fellow TikTokers and YouTubers should come visit here. But that said, it's just not an indictment of Bo by any means. I'm just asking.
Well, I will say Bo doesn't go live He doesn't do live.
You're
often.
surviving?
Yeah. But we had a conversation on Twitter about this. Me and him, it was a public conversation. The amount of money that I could make if I didn't have ethics.
Right.
I know for a fact. I mean, like I said, Steven Crowder turned down a $50 million contract because he gets on and he yells and he lies and stuff like that. One, yes, and this is something that I noticed with my, like, even my TikToks, my ICUs, you know, the racist who is playing the full-on racist sound, who there was one that I did recently. He was a real estate agent in Florida. He was playing a very racist remake of the Shire talk from Lord of the Rings, using slurs and everything while he walked, full name and everything. And it was an expose of like, dude, what is going on? That has drama to it. Yes, I did this on purpose to point out the sound, to point out, one, this is a real estate agent who is working with people of color, who is openly exposing his racist views. You're going to get, pardon the language, screwed if you go to him. He is going to, and one of the lines I said is, he'll sell you at a house, but he'll make sure it's not in the same neighborhood as him.
Rob, yeah, you beat
Yeah.
me to that. That's what I was thinking too.
So that video gets thousands, and I mean, I'm talking 20, 30, 40,000 views. I did a video of a man who, he called it the nose ring drama. It's not the nose ring drama. It's people noticed that he was a neo-Nazi. And then when people found out that he was a neo-Nazi, he goes, yes, I'm the reincarnation of Adolf Hitler.
Oh.
That video has 11 million views, where me pointing out that, like, this is what's going on with this. This is why people, because not everything for me is counter extremism. It's just, you're hearing about Felix Cipher. That was the man's the reincarnation of Adolf Hitler. You don't know what's going on about it. Here's what's going on. But somebody claiming that he is the reincarnation of Adolf Hitler gets 11 million views. Me breaking down a neo-Nazi dog whistle with 600,000 followers, I may get 10,000 views on that, because that drama sells. But I'm not in the business of drama. Would I love to do this for a living? Would this be my main source of income, that I do social media all the time? Absolutely. That would be a dream of mine. And that's one of the reasons I branched out to YouTube. Same video content. YouTube has a better chance of me actually like making a living off this, while I can share my knowledge and my passion of this studies with the world. But that's not the goal. My goal is not to become rich off this. Like I said, I started making these videos to educate. Yeah, I can lie. But I can't lie and debunk at the same time. I can't debunk propaganda while creating my own. I can't try to put a stop to disinformation while spreading disinformation. It's just not me. And also, like I said, I cuss, I slip cuss words out. If you follow me on Facebook or Twitter, especially Twitter, there's going to be a few cuss words in my tweets. That is me. But I also talk about the fact that I found a soda stream at Goodwill on Twitter. I don't make a video on TikTok about that. That's more me raw, like that is Celt. But my videos need to be able to be watched by a large audience, regardless of age, or, like I said, I have teachers who put it in there. They don't need me. Teachers aren't going to put me in their civics class if I'm standing on the table and calling people names and cussing. And my reach is going to be, from my experiences, limited.
I believe that if it weren't for the fact that a Republican leaning hedge fund bought them at their height, Air America proved that progressive radio can work and that there's an audience for it. Air America was at its height at the last midterm of the W. Bush, 2006, at the W. Bush administration, when Democrats retook Congress. So there is a market. Democrats buy things too. we buy mattresses and cars and pillows, wink, wink. And, you know, we
I see what you did there. I see what you did there.
every now and then a blind squirrel finds a nut. But there is a market for progressive radio. So why do there are individual programs and they don't tend to yell or scream either, but yet there's still a market for it. Tom Hartman, Randy Rhodes, Stephanie Miller, David Packman, Mike Malloy, who does actually yell and scream and swear a lot. You would enjoy Malloy, by the way. Just give him a shot. You would love that. So why do you suppose it's not a bigger, why doesn't Air America exist anymore? Why isn't someone trying to do it again?
We don't have the, you know, Elon Musk's throwing billions of dollars behind it, because going back to that first hour we were talking about, the billionaire class, progressive ideas are not in their best interest. So they're not throwing money at it like they are, you know, again, Daily Wire, Daily Caller. They're throwing millions of dollars at Ben Shapiro's network that he started up the same way me and you did this. Where, I mean, Matt Walsh was making $100,000 a month off YouTube before he was demonetized. He's still not worried about the fact that he's lost that money, because he knows there's $1 billion investors behind him that are willing to pay for him to continue producing that propaganda because it's in their best interest.
I happen to think Mr. Shapiro's a dark horse for Tucker's spot. Just saying, just throwing it out there. The dark horse. I'm not saying he's going to get it by any means. I'm just
leaning,
keep an eye. I think he's a dark horse.
The irony is I did an entire video on that where for a while, I don't know how it's going to go now because of Tucker's play with his Twitter video, but where I kind of opined, was Tucker going to go to something like Ben Shapiro's network where he would have more free reign?
I actually think he's going to go to RT.
Yeah, I had filmed the video.
Really?
And as I was filming the video, I got a text going, "Hey, Tucker just got offered a job on Russian state media." I was like, well, you know, let me add that into
when the Russian foreign minister is making a special comment at the United Nations about, gee, wow, I thought you guys were the land of free speech and you just squelched, you know, the most popular American host in Russia. So yeah, there's that kind of thing. Why do you think that was such a, first off, let me say to the folks, you're welcome to try to call. I don't know if the software is working. I'm being just very blunt and honest with you. I did refresh it. I did test it. I can hear everything. I'm not sure why we couldn't hear the other caller. Forgive me, caller. You are welcome to try. The line is currently open. 267-227-9189. 267-227-9189. Why was the Tucker story such a big story? Was it cable media congratulating itself? MSNBC spent a hell of a lot of time on it.
It's that one to be honest, was a shock. Like I, as much as I can usually call a lot of this stuff, I didn't call them randomly firing Tucker Carlson. I didn't call it. I had that.
I don't think anybody saw it coming. MSNBC spent 4 days on it. Well,
Bo kind of saw it coming when he brought up the fact that Bill O'Reilly was fired for a lot less money than the Dominion lawsuit.
Yeah.
A lot less money than that, because, you know, Fox doesn't.
Ailes was fired for less.
Yeah. But because Tucker has been did we lose that one?
He did. I don't know. He might have given up.
Tucker,
folks, if you call, I will get to you. I swear to God. If I answer it, I'll get to you. I'm just not going to cut anybody off in the middle of a rant. We can always get to you. Hang in there. You are welcome to try us. 267-227-9189. Especially if you're new to the program. Just don't jump straight away. If Celt or any guest is in the middle of speaking, I will answer the phone. Just hang in there. Then we will get to you. I promise. I promise. I promise. So somebody's trying again. Let's give it a shot.
Yeah, let's try.
443. Go ahead.
Try 443.
Area code 443. Go ahead. First name, where are you
Hey,
calling
how you
from?
doing?
First name and where are you calling
Hey,
from?
it's
I know there's a.
Brad.
Okay, great, Brad.
I
Listen,
guessed it was going to
Brad.
be Brad.
Brad, just do me a favor because I can hear the number of seconds in between. Listen to the phone. Don't listen to the device.
Yeah, I'm not. I'm
Gotcha.
just, I've got you on a headphone.
No worries.
Yeah,
Thank you for
I-
giving us a
it's
try
kind
this
of,
week.
I had to call you on a regular phone line.
Those old-fashioned regular phone lines.
Well, no, cell phone, but you
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
I had to call you directly with my cell phone number. Don't give it out.
No, it wouldn't. That's why we
You
only
know,
say area
and,
code and first name to protect the innocent.
Absolutely. But yeah, I just wanted to call in to see if it worked for you and what might have been causing the problem. I'm a tech person, so Celt knows that.
Awesome.
So I'm a techie, and I was like, this probably has to do with the Wi-Fi.
I'm actually connected on a direct Ethernet cable down to my cable modem.
Yeah, me too.
George is a
So-
tech person as well. He builds computers. He's done IT, all that stuff. We've shaken through just about everything we possibly can that I can afford. Believe me, if I had another 100,000 to throw at this, well, believe me, we wouldn't have any problems. But that's I'm only about 100,000 short of throwing another 100,000 at this.
I hear No, I just
So-
wanted to call and touch base, say you guys are doing a great job, and let Celt hear my voice for the first time.
Yeah, thank you. Brad, once he said his username, I was like, oh yeah, I know that that person has been following my videos for a while, commenting. That's the one thing I don't like about Facebook as much, because it's like I learn people by usernames. I see your username on TikTok,
Right. Off of
see your
Mo.
Twitter handles, and then I go on Facebook and it's like these are real names.
They're
Yeah.
actual people, right? Yeah, they're
Yeah.
actual people.
Which makes it really interesting because I get the most death threats on Facebook. Like legit, I get the most death threats from
From people
Facebook.
who give out their real shit.
Real name, real job. I'm like, you know that I find people with anime profile pictures and a pseudonym for a living, right? And you're just handing me all of this stuff. Okay,
Anime-
cool.
Anime pictures of young.
Yeah.
We're supposedly the groomers, but it's the anime pictures of the
Oh
young
no,
you know, 12 and 13-year-old
If
girls. Yeah,
you
yeah.
guys want to get into a conversation, that's a whole nother
Yeah.
thing right there.
Well, God, Brad, did you have a
Perspective that they
question?
have on that?
Did you have a question,
Yeah.
Brad, that you wanted to throw out there?
Well, Oh well, no, I'm just saying that the GOP is, like you were saying earlier about trying to lower the marriage age, is hard pressed to push for keeping their rights as white cishet males to keep predatory practices in place. Put it nicely.
Hey, let me ask you both something. Brad, you were kind enough to call. Stay on and give me your thoughts. This
Sure.
might be a semantical argument too, Kel. It might very well be just semantical.
Okay.
Can we stop using GOP? What's grand about
Yeah.
what the modern Republican structure, the modern Republican corporation is doing to this country? What's grand about it? It might be old, but it isn't a functioning political party. So 2 out of the 3 initials are no good anymore.
So
Mhm.
I like one of the new acronyms I've seen. Keep the G, keep the P. You change the O to a Q. Because the
QQP.
QAnon part,
Definitely.
the Grand QAnon Party, because that is what it has become. I don't differentiate. Once MAGA and QAnon became a thing, the Republican Party died. It is the MAGA Party. If Republicans want a chance of legitimate governancy and to be a legitimate party, they need to start something new. I mean, the non-MAGA Republicans. If you want to be a thing again, you need to break from Trump and start something new. In fact, I predicted when Trump first announced his presidency that we are looking at the chance of Trump destroying the Republican Party completely if he does not get the Republican nomination. Because if he doesn't, I strongly believe that he will run as an independent, divide their vote, and that's pretty much the end of Republican Party as we know it. But
This is all goes back to Newt Gingrich.
yeah,
I would say it goes back to Nixon, but yeah.
yeah,
Well, yeah, Nixon was one of the first, but once Reagan came in and Newt started courting the far right, and they just basically said, "We're just going to do this because we can feed them. We can spoon feed these people."
But again, and it's
Trump says the best.
it might sound like I'm being argumentative. I swear to you, I'm not. It's Nixon's Southern strategy, though, isn't it? The folks in
Yeah.
the South who were upset with the Voting Rights and Civil Rights Acts being passed, and Nixon reaching out to those. Remember, it was his chief of staff, Haldeman, who said, when he was asked after, why did you make marijuana a class 1 drug? And he said, because it's still the United States. We couldn't arrest kids for protesting against the war. We couldn't arrest them for going to college. We couldn't arrest them for being black, but we could arrest them for pot. So we did. So it would seem the Republican Party, especially since before the Republican Great Depression, and again, little historical note here, folks, it was always referred to as the Republican Great Depression for about 20 years after, until Republicans were successful in knocking that down and taking their names out of it. But that said, the Republicans, of course, were born out of the Whig Party, going back into the 1800s, and yes, they were they were the anti-slavery party. Oddly enough, even though they were the pro-corporate, pro-rich party, they were the anti-slavery party. Yes, that's true. It's absolutely true. They've always been the pro-corporate, pro-rich party, and we've seen that
they
now.
knew that it wasn't sustainable.
What, that they knew that the
Slavery wasn't sustainable.
I would say there's history. I would say that's a fuzzy area in history. But yes, I think for the most part, I think you are right. I do think there are some Republican industrialists in the North who were perfectly happy with it. Remember, New York City threatened to secede and be aligned with the CSA because they were the ones that were processing all the cotton. So it would be interesting. It would be very morbidly interesting. You know, if the United States were to split again, first off, Pennsylvania would split into about 1,000 different pieces, because there are some. This is the northernmost Confederate state, but that said, it wouldn't be a clean break anymore, would it? I mean, you would have basically from North Carolina across down through Texas and all, but usually you'd have probably Montana, and Idaho, and Wyoming, and it wouldn't be the clean break that it was back then. But again, maybe it's more of a semantical argument, and maybe it's a silly argument, or not even an argument, but a silly discussion. I just think we should stop. There's GOP. The GOP doesn't exist anymore. Eisenhower's party, he's the last legitimately, legally elected Republican president in this country. And that was 1956.
Yeah.
So
that's terrible.
What is grand about that? It's old, but there's nothing grand about it, and it's not a functioning political party. It is the Republican Corporation, at least in this airwave little bit of electronic life. It is the Republican Corporation, because that's what I think they are.
So there's
a question. Can Celt hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
He can.
Oh, okay. Cool.
Go ahead.
I just was just going to say, I appreciate what you guys have done today, and thanks for being here and doing all your work. And Celt, you and I haven't talked extensively, but I've been following you since day one practically.
Yeah.
Since the guy Mia had her debacle.
That's where most people found me.
Now that I've found Jeff, I will definitely be following you too.
And
Well, it's very kind of you.
and no worries. But as Celt knows, I'm a fervent commenter. I tried to be Celt at one time, but I didn't have his background. So I got rid of all my mics and headphones and lights and everything else, and now I just like I said before, give good comment.
Brad, very generally, I don't need street address. I don't even need municipality, but where are you? If I might ask, where's area
DC
code?
metropolitan area.
Oh, in the DC area. Okay. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Well,
Yeah,
hey,
I live in
technical
Maryland.
expertise is always welcomed here. It'll give George a break.
Absolutely.
would you
I've been
like-
doing computers since '84?
Would you like to see George's salary? Close your eyes. The amount of money we've all made on this program. We did it out of principle, and it's why we continue to do it. Thank you very much for calling and giving us a chance. And I hope
Hey,
that
no
you
worries,
will.
no worries.
I hope that you will continue to listen each week. And if you miss us live, like I said, please go to the YouTube channel. Everything's recorded right there.
I just subscribed.
Oh, beauty. Lovely. Thank you.
Now you do need to pin your little piece of paper into the comment section next time.
Your
That?
phone numbers.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
I know it's
your
not
phone
the
number
most-
paper.
It's not the most technically advanced thing, but at least it's there.
Get George on that.
I
Tell
will.
George will give you a bonus.
Yeah. Yeah. 0 plus 0 is still 0. It's become
right, Jeff.
our thank you so much.
Tell-
Thank you.
Peace, gentlemen.
See you, bro.
Phone lines open 22. What did I? Oh God, I don't even know. 267-227-9189. 267-227-9189. Let me ask you a question in between here. Is Marjorie Taylor Greene a symptom of the problem or the problem?
Both, to be honest. Sometimes the symptom is the problem. Because yes, Marjorie Taylor Greene is if you look at her stuff pre-Congress, she is a conspiracy theorist. She is for QAnon, Jewish space lasers, all of that.
So isn't she then the example? And I'm not asking this to try to prove my correctness, is she not then the proof, if you will? Come on, that
Hello, Jeff.
it is a corporation. Hang on, caller, 1 second. That it is a corporation. She's just a hired hand. So's Luke Gomert. So's Lauren Boebert. So's Matt Gaetz.
basically, they
and
found someone
one from Kentucky. I can't remember his name right now. They're hired hands. They're just.
They found somebody that their propaganda worked on, and then turned them into a spokesperson.
That's
that was it.
That's such a succinct way to put it. I wish I'd thought of it. Same area code 443. First name only, please. And where are you calling from?
This is Santo from Delmarva.
Welcome, Santo. I read a couple of Santo's comments and questions throughout the program. Go ahead, Santo. You have a question or thought you want to share? Have at it.
Sure. I'm a newbie here, and I'm certainly not in the league with you two, but I thought that the GOP, the G in the GOP stood for grand theft. So, for that reason, I think it still works. But the other thing was, when you talked about America no longer being the leader of the free world, you didn't mention that we really do stick up militarily for other countries around the world that are trying to be free. We are a member of NATO and, of course, in the United Nations. Are there any further thoughts on that?
Help. Before I get into it.
Yeah. So, in full disclosure, I'm former military, former defense contractor, former Department of Defense civilian. My entire background is because of my experience doing those jobs. I can talk about the subjects that I can because of that experience. Not every time we get involved militarily are we, even if when we're trying to help, are we actually helping? To be honest. I'll be honest, I'm very happy that the fact that we are sending Ukraine equipment and cash instead of other forms of support, because sometimes that's what that country needs. They need support, from our perspective. We have this huge military budget to be able to repel the foreign invader, Russia. The fact that I see so many, tankies, supporting imperialism by saying, hey, Ukraine should just surrender to Russia. That's a different conversation. I could go on for that for another few hours that we don't have.
The supposed party of freedom and anti-communist party and all that stuff, and now we're supposed to just let the Ukrainians, be reabsorbed, if you will.
But sometimes we overstep our military intervention into things. Like, again, I went to the Iraq War. Why? I didn't join the Iraq War until it was, Al Qaeda and what is now ISIS. No, we didn't make them, but we literally said, hey, we're going to topple this dictator. And then we did it in such a way. By the first move we did was, oh yeah, all of you that are in the army and all of you that are, police, congrats, you no longer have jobs. And we watched literal busloads of foreign terrorists cross over from Syria through the Rabia Gate. When I say literal busloads, I'm using the word literal to mean literal. 44 passenger buses full of foreign fighters moving into the country, because we went into a country that we knew nothing about and said, we're going to topple your dictator, we're going to give you freedom, but we don't know your culture, we don't know your language, and we're going to do it in such a way that made the problem worse.
And occupy it and divide the oil fields among a handful of corporations.
Exactly.
Because we don't know why our God was silly enough to put our oil under your land.
Exactly. So there are times that, yes, we are leader in supplying stuff like that, like with what we're doing with Ukraine. Here's money. This is your country. You should defend it. You know how to defend it, and you know best how to serve your own country. You just don't have the financial assets to go against another superpower such as Russia. Acceptable way to go.
So, Santo, I would default to defer to what Senator Sanders has told us. Again, that I think everything that Celt said is spot on. I do. But there seems to come a price with our quote unquote aid. And Ukraine might be the first place where that price doesn't seem to have been yet exacted. We have countries. My goodness, I must be getting tired. We have troops in 184 countries. And some of them literally we're only talking a handful, 10, 12. And Celt knows this. This is American empire. $850 billion a year, every single year. We tend to talk about the defense budget in this sense, in this sort of abstraction that we are somehow separated from it. It's every year, year upon year upon year upon year. And not to mention that the Afghan and second Iraq war were paid for entirely off the books. They were never part of a standard budget. We basically printed that money. Yes, do we help other places? We do. And why do we always again, it goes back to a little bit of the conversation that we had about China. Why is our help always at the point at the end of the barrel of a gun? With a handful of the finest young Americans, many of whom volunteer to serve for all the best reasons, some of which volunteer to serve because they have no other avenue in life. It's the poorest among us that serve. But sure, we'll help, we'll defend, then we stay. We never come home. China's doing, this is why when I talked earlier about the answers to so many of our problems being in our own history, what happened to the Peace Corps? if you really want to think about it, it's probably not a perfect analogy, and I'm admitting that to you right now. But what is China doing throughout Central, South America, and Africa? Peace Corps work. Now, look, they're extracting a toll, if you will, at the same time. We'll have the lithium and the coal and the lead and the gold, and we'll have all of it. But we're going to leave you with roads, schools. Your village now has solar power, water. I mean, it's a different form, if you will, I guess. And again, maybe I'm being oversimplified. It's an oversimplification here, but and maybe it's not the most.
You got to throw in there, Doc.
Do you know where Doctors Without Borders does the majority of its work now? Here, in the United States. No wonder they don't have borders. They don't go anywhere else. They do their work here. And especially throughout the South, where people will line up 4, 5, 7 days ahead and wait in line like they're trying to buy Bruce Springsteen tickets, just so they can be seen by a medical professional. Doctors Without Borders does absolutely, you are correct, Santo, operate in so many of these far-flung places in our globe. But the majority of their work is now here in the United States, because we have a pure for-profit system. And the sicker you get, and that's me, the more expensive you become and the less important you become. What is so damned pro-life about the fact that you can't afford to see a doctor, so you probably should just die? It's quicker and cheaper. What's so pro-life about that? And this is not even to argue with you, to disagree and to debate, because that's how we learn. It's how we rebuild the society and the fabric of this country. One of the greatest lies that was ever told to the American people was by Reagan saying that we are a group of rugged individuals and we're not a community. We're not a society. That's a lie. Of course we are. What happens to you affects me. If my neighbor's house burns, it affects me. I live right next to him. So,
I'm one of the vulnerable people. I'll be close to 80.
please get right into the microphone, my friend. We're having a very hard time hearing you.
I said I'm one of those vulnerable people that suffers from ageism, because I'll be turning 80 in a few months.
Right?
And I find that ageism is rampant in our culture.
Agreed.
And I'm constantly fighting. It's just assumed that if you're old, you're useless.
I think it does happen a lot. Absolutely. I'm with you. One of the stories I posted this week is one of the most, I labeled it on top. You can go to the Facebook page. You'll see it. It is also from The Guardian. Again, I didn't see a single domestic source post this. A 92-year-old woman who worked as a grocery store clerk and bagger was finally able to retire because the community set up a GoFundMe.
I saw that.
She
Yeah, I saw
had to work at 92.
Amazing.
And guess what? She's not alone. And guess what else? When folks try to say, I think Celt will agree with me, I think, system's broken that a woman like that should have to work. Oh no, it's not broken. It's exactly how the damn thing was designed when Reagan took power.
agree.
and cut the top corporate tax rate from 74% to 25%. And then to make up the money, started to tax unemployment, Social Security, disability, doing tax the rich folks. The system's not broken. It's working exactly as it was designed.
And it's not just the economic system. All these systems that we keep saying are broken. The fact that somebody can lose a popular vote and still become president, that's not a broken system. That was the system they wanted.
And so what does that 92-year-old woman have to do with your original question, Santo? Because when we can afford $850 billion every year, and again, Senator Sanders will tell you it's 1.2 to 1.4 trillion dollars. But that 92-year-old woman has to bag groceries just for the faint hope of being able to see a doctor. Sorry?
I said there's a term for it. It's called predatory capitalism.
I wouldn't even say it's predatory. It's exactly how capitalism was designed.
No, I mean, if you could have a democratic socialism, it would work better.
Capitalism works just fine in Sweden because it's very heavily regulated. I could make the argument for you, Kel. I'm going to ask you a question. I can make an argument that the country that may have perfected capitalism, or at least has gone as far as perfecting it as there is on Earth at this moment, is China, because it is so heavily regulated.
It's everyone keeps talking about China being a communist country. It's in the name. It's as communist as North Korea is a democratic republic. It is a state capitalist country.
Correct. The government has a hand in everything, but because they're taking the profit, really.
Yeah.
The Communist Party officials are the richest, pretty much the richest people in the country.
Yeah, like tell me, what does the Chinese factory worker who is making my iPhone, what means of production does he own? Because that's communism. That's socialism. He owns the means of production. He doesn't. He makes pennies on the dollar.
Right. But the party officials make it.
Bingo. The party officials and the American billionaires
right.
that are involved with the party officials, who, by the way, the majority of them are right wing, because those Chinese officials who are going into African countries to get the cobalt and the lithium, who are they selling it to? Elon Musk to build his Tesla cars.
And remember, Walmart has an entire division that will, if you want to sell your product in their stores for the price that they want to sell it at, they have an entire division that will help you move all of your manufacturing to China so that you can cut costs and that they can sell your product at the dollar amount that they want to sell it at. Stay right there. I'm late for my reset. We're entering our final hour. I don't know how much longer everybody's going to be here. I don't know if we're going to go straight to 9, but this one way or another, this is our final hour. Wherever you might be across Facebook, that other side of information is our home group Facebook page. Hot101.net, Apple App Store, Google Play Store. Our name is our web address, and the TCP Media Group. Phone line is there, 267-227-9189, 267-227-9189. Be the next caller after Santo.
Well, I'm going to go now, you guys, but thank you for listening. Yeah, thank you for the information.
And
I will monitor you.
And thank you for giving us a chance, Santo. I hope you will continue to come back and check out our program. Coming up next week, by the way, this will interest Celt as well, is one of the national founders of Stop Moms for Liberty. Liz Mkhitaryan will be our guest next week as we head into very important primaries and school board elections throughout the country, especially here in Pennsylvania, but throughout the country. The head of one of the founders of Stop Moms for Liberty will be with us next week. And we hope that all of the new faces and new names and new everybody that have been part of the program that this very popular dude has brought along with him will stay with us and check us out each week. And again, if you missed any of the program, youtube.com/that other side of information. George will take this Facebook video, turn it into YouTube video, and you can watch it all week long. I don't know how much longer. Yeah, I just saw you yawn, and I'm going to start yawning too because I'm exhausted. My back is absolutely killing me. But what did we miss? What are we missing as a society when the facts are right in front of us? And I know I asked a lot about this in the first hour. I mean, are we really seeing just how powerful propaganda can be?
Mhm.
Or are we seeing that the propaganda is just backing up some of the things that we already believed? I think one of the very first discussions that came out of the onset of the Trump era was this was always in our country. He just made it okay.
That's honestly it. It was always in our country. He made it more okay to be open about it. I mean, going to your propaganda statement, the propaganda is that powerful because that propaganda is ingrained in American society, American exceptionalism, American loyalty, the idea that to be patriotic, you cannot criticize your government has been a thing from the beginning. Why do we tell kindergartners to stand up, put their hand over their heart, and pledge allegiance to a flag that they don't understand what the words in that pledge mean? Because if you make it normal, when they get old enough, you can teach them whatever you want those words to mean. But they've done it since the beginning.
That's I tell the story here all the time. It's the reason why one of the very first things that the Reagan administration did was to make Bill Bennett the head of the Department of Education. And the first thing that he did was to end the mandate to teach civics, because it's very, very hard to complain about your government and what it's doing when you have absolutely no idea how it functions.
And because of that, how they don't know how it functions, that is a large portion of what I see of the propaganda is, oh, the government is doing this. There's literally, I can't remember which congresswoman it was going on there that goes, hey, our new budget bill, she's Republican, does not cut the Veterans Administration budget all the time. And she holds up one piece of paper and goes, do you see a budget cut here? And puts it down. That bill is 316 pages. But people do not understand that the budget is not one piece of paper that she held up and said, hey, here's the discretionary funding. Do you see any cuts there? Well, no, I don't, because that's 2024's discretionary funding. I don't see the other pages that compare it to 2023 and 2022. And you're holding up one page of a 316-page bill. But people don't know that the House of Representatives and Senate will get handed a 400-page bill and vote on it 10 minutes later. The first time they see that bill is 10 minutes before they voted. It's 400 pages. I am a very slow reader. I will 100% admit that. I do not read fast. I cannot read 400 pages in 10 minutes. 400 pages are going to take me a few weeks at the rate that I read. But they vote on it. And we people don't know that because that doesn't come up in civics. We have people complaining about when they passed the Oberfeld ruling in the SCOTUS that allowed gay marriage across the country. The Republican response was, why is SCOTUS creating laws? And then you had your average day Americans honestly believing that the reason gay marriage passed was because the Supreme Court of the United States passed a law. Supreme Court doesn't pass laws. They don't have that ability. They made
Not
a
to
court
mention
ruling.
the deep hypocrisy of Republicans who will claim that they hate the activist court and then use it.
Yes. Oh, that's
What was the Dobbs decision? That was an activist court. It was creating law of thin air.
Yeah.
The first time in the history of this country that the Supreme Court took away rights. Earlier on in the Supreme Court's history, it reaffirmed the illogical ideal that an entire group of people had no rights. It did reaffirm that, but it was the Dobbs decision was the very first time that the Supreme Court actually removed rights from, oh, by the way, about 57% of the population.
And and to be honest, as much as like when that went through, the Dobbs decision was not necessarily about abortion. It was a precursor. Yes, that was a big win for them. That is what they wanted. It's a terrible thing that went. Don't anyone take this that I am discrediting the loss of women's reproductive rights. That was a step on the ultimate goal. Because Clarence Thomas said it in his own statements. This paves the way for outlawing gay marriage, interracial marriage, deconstructing entire civil rights movement.
Marriage he himself is in.
Yes, but his marriage won't actually be
with.
affected because apparently, you can be in an interracial marriage sitting on the Supreme Court and be best friends with a billionaire Nazi memorabilia collector. And that's okay.
How big of a failure, and I will admit this again, I am an official inside the Democratic Party. I've been a Democrat since I came out of the womb. I mean, it's in my name. I've been this way. And again, I said earlier on the program, I don't think the Democratic Party is perfect by any means, but I do think we're the only ones trying. Article 3, Section 2. The first 3 articles of the Constitution lay out government. Congress is first, the first among equals. Article 2 is the executive. Article 3 is the judiciary. Article 3, Section 2 says that Congress shall have the power to regulate the courts. Of all the things that were accomplished in the first 2 years of the Biden administration was not doing anything about the courts, perhaps one of the biggest things that got skipped or missed.
It was because that's been a long. So this ties into your Moms of Liberty guest next week, or Stop Moms of Liberty guest next week, and I'm sure she'll talk about it. The Democratic Party on all levels have ignored the non-famous election and appointments. School boards, courts. I mean, yes, there's a lot of federal courts that are appointed. You're appointed, it's a lifetime appointment. We're even talking on the state and county levels. A lot of your judges are elected. I don't know if you know that, people, when you go to vote in your local elections, you can elect your state and local judges. But the biggest one
only 8 states have judicial elections, but they're big.
Yeah.
And they determine pretty much how that state's going to go.
But even then, the Democratic Party overlooked, like, I love Ruth Bader Ginsburg. She should have retired. She could have planned her retirement at a time. But the stacking of the court in the conservative favor was a goal of theirs. It's they know they can't win within the legislative branch. And as if they keep running megalomaniacs like Trump, they can't win, period. Because you either, kiss his butt or he's just going to turn on everything you do. But SCOTUS, they know they can do the ruling. Because one of two things can happen. They can pass the law, have it signed, and we know it's unconstitutional. Me and you, the average 5th grader, can look at it and go, this is unconstitutional. As long as the SCOTUS agrees with it, it's congrats, it's now constitutional. Because some weird interpretation of some archaic, British law that somehow affects our interpretation of the Constitution made it constitutional. Or if we succeed and pass a law, it doesn't matter. If they control the courts. It sucks, but the power within our government is in the court. If you pass a law, you get it signed. Okay, cool. We're going to rush it through all the different, different court levels till it gets to SCOTUS, and then SCOTUS goes, yep, nope, denied. It's gone.
When the Supreme Court took upon itself the power of judicial review.
Mhm.
Jefferson, in his very advanced years, went pretty nuts and
Mhm.
began firing off letters. They are part of the Federalist Papers in his correspondence to different framers that this was unconstitutional. They did not have this power. They were never intended to have this power. And it's really never been adjudicated. And the very, very interesting thing is that the Supreme Court would then have to end up ruling on itself. And I can't suspect that the court, regardless of who was in the majority, would ever take the power back. Does the Supreme Court actually have the power of judicial review?
Per the base, no. But at the same time, and this is a double-edged sword. If we are going to have a checks and balances, they need a judicial review. But at the same time, the way that we do judicial review puts the power all in the court.
Right.
The fact that they can just go, hey, no, this is wrong. You need to change it. Instead of going, this is wrong, you need to change this, this, and this. They go straight into, oh, I'm by myself now.
No, it's okay.
I know I'm playing with
You're
it.
not by yourself.
But they go straight into it's gone. And in reality, judicial review should be, okay, I'm taking rid of this. You guys need to change this. You need to change this. And it goes back to Congress. Not that it's overruled, not that it disappears. You wrote a law, it's a bad law. Fix this. Because that's how most appeals courts work anyway. Hey,
It is at a minimum well past time that Congress reassert its Article 3, Section 2 powers. It would seem to me.
at this point, we had two actions. We assert that or we just stack the court. But then you have the issue is
I would argue that the court is already stacked.
I know. That's
If the court was to go to 15, which is where I would like to see it, and
Okay.
President Biden gets to appoint all of them, or 2 per year until we go to 15. I would argue it's a rebalancing of the court, not stacking it.
See,
It's already stacked.
the issue though then is we get into, and I hate slippery slope arguments, but in reality, this is what we get into. Okay, we raise it to 12, we raise it to 15. Republicans now take power. Oh, they're going to make it 21.
It's changed 9 times in the history of the court.
Yeah.
I mean, during the after President Lincoln's assassination, when Andrew Johnson became president, Republicans reduced the size of the court to 5, just so to make sure he couldn't appoint anyone.
A good fix is get rid of lifetime. Like we complain that Congress shouldn't be a lifetime career. You know, we have Congress people who've worked 20, 30 years, they're 80 years old. That is the only job they've ever really known.
See, the only part of that, though, the only catch of that is that that requires constitutional amendment.
It does.
Congress shall have the power means legislation only.
Yep.
But to remove the lifetime appointment, and I'm not saying that I disagree with you, because again, a lifetime back at the founding of the country was 50, 55. If you were lucky, you lived into your 60s. Now we're talking about justices who have lived into their 80s. It's not the same thing. If you're appointed at 40, you could literally be there for 50 years.
Mm-hmm.
That's not what the framers intended either. So but the reassertion of rights, there's a very technical question in the chat I want to ask you. Why don't we end at 8:30? You're yawning and so am I.
That works for me.
And my goodness, you want to get upstairs. I'm sure your wife is like, what the hell have you been doing down here for 3
I
hours?
think, well, she's actually listening to the show. She watches every time I do these shows, she watches.
I do want to ask, there's a very technical question in the chat from a very regular listener from Phyllis. What would be the effect of the dollar losing its reserve status throughout the world, meaning as the default world currency? China's been efforting this, by the way. They've been lobbying openly for the dollar to no longer be the default world currency. They would like to see it be their currency, but they would settle for it if it was the euro.
So one, I'm not in the Congress. Full disclosure.
I am not either, and I don't play one on the radio.
Yeah. So like the economic of what's going to happen within, the United States if we're no longer. You try to have me explain fully inflation to you. I'm like, prices go up and corporations bad. But it would be a power hit to us as a country. Like, it's not just our military that makes us relevant in the world. It is the fact that our money is the default. I mean, would it cause us to disappear? No. The same way that if our military wasn't in almost every country in the world, we wouldn't disappear as a country. But the rest of the world would think of us in the same way they think of Finland. I'm sorry, I know for a fact that most Americans don't think about the fact that Finland exists. No offense to anybody in Finland, but like, you're a country in the world. Most Americans can't name the majority of the countries in the world. We would become one of those countries that were not, in a few generations, that we were a blip in history. We exist, but nobody really talks about it. They talk about us because we screw with world politics so much and we control the money. Because everything is based on what our banks decide to do. What does our economy decide to do? It's kind of like the same with, like, look at Britain. They lost control of the majority of the world, but they still exist. They're still technically a superpower. They just don't have the colonies. Yes and no. Some weird thing about some dude's going to be turned into a monarchy because for some reason that still exists, and they're asking everyone in the world
On Saturday. Yep.
Is
On
it Saturday?
I think it's Saturday. Yeah. The coronation begins, I think, at 5 a.m. our time, 5 a.m. Eastern time.
And
Eastern time.
let's not get into the millions and billions of dollars that will be spent on that, while people in Britain still are kind of like us and have people who are starving in their country and homeless.
30 years of conservative rule. Yeah, they're
Yeah.
facing a lot of the same things we are: wealth inequality, trying to privatize the National Health Service. And by the way, I've mentioned on this program before, as much as Senator Sanders and so many of us talk about how wonderful it would be to even be able to buy into Medicare for all, you've uttered the words a couple times on our time here together. I would go further. I would like to see a United States National Health Service.
I would.
Once the profit motive is removed, is about the only way it's ever going to be egalitarian, and that everyone will have the ability to access it. And I'm not saying have access to it, but the actual ability to access it. Access is one of the most poorly used words in the healthcare debate. We need to give people access. I have access to buy an Aston Martin.
Yeah.
And I should very much like to have one, to be honest. I just don't have the $800,000 to pay for it, but I do have access to it. It's the same thing. Access to healthcare is meaningless if you cannot afford it under the weight of our purely capitalistic, profit-driven system. I happen to think single payer is not the answer. I happen to think it's a national health service, but that's maybe a different topic for a different day.
And it's like, I have to explain to a lot of people, like, the Affordable Care Act was a great thing. It helped a lot of people. It is not the solution. There are many people who can't afford it still.
We can argue that all it really did was put hundreds of billions of dollars into the hands of the health insurance industry.
Yeah. But I mean, like I said, the people who could get coverage who didn't have it before, I'm very much happy for you. I'm not
about 44 million Americans.
Yeah. But how many more Americans still can't even get that? So the Medicare for all, okay, Medicare is still $164.90 a month.
I would buy into it tomorrow if I had the
opportunity. I know,
opportunity.
but every American, there are so many people in this country who still couldn't buy into it. Yeah.
And let's remember,
it's a step.
In 2016, Koch brothers commissioned a study to show how much Medicare for all would cost. With the thought being, we're going to prove how much more this is going to cost Americans and everybody's going to hate it. Well, the report was finished. And it showed that over a 10-year period, it would save the country $10 trillion in cost. Bernie Sanders got a hold of it and publicized it. And I'll bet that most of you didn't know any of that because it didn't make the news. And I remember when he came to Bethlehem, just over here on the old Bethlehem Steel property, and did a town hall with Fox News. And a gentleman, it turns out he was a plant. He was the first question that Senator Sanders took from the audience. Turned out the gentleman was a plant. Are my taxes going to go up with your Medicare for All plan? And Bernie stood up, walked to the edge of the stage, and he said, yes. Yes, they will. He said, but let me do some math for you. Every man, woman, and healthcare is almost 1/5 of the national GDP now.
Mhm.
Every man, woman, and child. These numbers have actually gone up since this town hall. Every man, woman, and child in this country spends approximately $23,000 a year in health-related costs. So let's say that the sum total of your municipal, county, state, and federal taxes are $6,000 a year. And let's say Medicare for All adds another $4,000 to that. It's now $10,000. It's a lot of money. You're still ahead by 13,000. Will you take that trade? Now, of course, the gentleman said nothing because he was a plant. But the rest of the crowd, he turned and said, would you take that trade? Would you pay the extra to get even more than, to get 3 times that back and be covered for eyes, teeth, mental health? And the place went bonkers. And he goes, that's pretty much what I thought. And that's why I pushed this. Which is not to say that Bernie Sanders has the answers to everything. He doesn't.
No,
But we're 8:27. So roughly, even though our airtime is open till 9, I know that Celt wants to go. I kind of want to go too. I have to get up at 5 in the morning for work.
we're good.
That said, the way I like to finish up is to just give you the floor. Is there any topic that we didn't hit that you really wanted to? Any answer that you didn't get to fully flush out because we either moved on or I wouldn't shut up? And of course, please tell everybody how they can watch you, follow you, find you, contact you, any of that. So I give you the floor, sir.
Okay. So the biggest, and I said it the same on the Villains Guild, or the Villains View, sponsored by the Villains Guild, is no matter what you do, please pay attention to local elections. I know that presidential elections, congressional elections, all that gets the most airtime. It is the most popular. I talk about it a lot because Marjorie Taylor Greene and Lauren Boebert are easy targets. Pay attention. You'll learn a lot about it next week with the guests that Jeff has announced, because Moms for Liberty's thing is school boards. I talked a lot about the fact that your kids need an education, and part of the Republican propaganda and disinformation and just fascist campaign is taking away aspects of your children's education. The way you prevent that is focusing on local elections and getting actual leftist and liberal candidates in your school boards. Democrats, independents, just not MAGA, not Republicans. That's the big one that I leave with everyone there. As for finding me, I am Big Red Celt on every platform except Twitter. I am Big Red Celt TT, because apparently there was a guy who played League of Legends with the name Big Red Celt about 10 years ago, and he got the handle on Twitter. So if you want to follow me on Twitter, it's Big Red Celt TT for TikTok. But TikTok, YouTube, Facebook, Big Red Celt, Twitter, Big Red Celt TT, Instagram, Big Red Celt. I'm on Tribal, Counter Social, Spoutable, Mastodon, all of it, Big Red Celt. Come find me. YouTube helps me the most because YouTube gives me the best funding so that eventually I can do this full time. But whatever platform you're on, I'm there. Love, as always, as I end every one of my videos. Love y'all.
I have one last piece of news for you before you go. It is bad news, I'm afraid. I hope you're sitting down.
You don't hear the chair squeak in the entire interview.
I know mine too. Right?
This thing is about to fall apart.
Again, my free chair. So
Yeah.
The bad news is that you are a member of the family now, sir. So it means that we will very much hope to call on you again. And that with all the sincerity I can possibly do over a screen, is that you are always, always welcome here. And I am eternally grateful that you would take this much time for our humble, small program, to share your thoughts, to share your time, take time from family and from the dogs, to spend this much time with us. It honestly means a great deal to me. I believe it means a great deal to the audience. And I'm deeply, deeply grateful. And I very much hope that this is not the only time that we see you. If you have something that you want to share with my audience, and it doesn't have to be 3.5 hours, it could be 5 minutes, then you have the keys to the castle. You know how to reach us, you know how to get in, and you come in, let us know what we need to know. But you are always welcome here, and you are part of our program family now. And we very, very, very much hope that you will come and see us again.
Let me add one more thing that just reminded me that I meant to say earlier. You mentioned like the size of my platform, and then, have unfortunately like put down yourself a little bit in this, talking about, I want to tell everyone who is interested in doing things like I do. I heard, Brad was one of them. He said that he used to do what I did, but he never got the reach. I started my social media career with a Samsung Galaxy J7, the biggest garbage. It was like a $50 phone. It was a $50 phone. And actually, I think I have it here, like one of these like crappy, like clip-on mics. If you watch my older videos, it's horrible. Like I cringe, but that is what I built my following with. That is what I got my message out. The only difference is now I have this mic that I bought. This is a $70 Amazon mic. I have a ring light over here, and I film on an iPhone SE. It is not, you do not have to spend thousands of dollars if you want to get into this, if you want to be part of the solution of creating progressive leftists and liberal content. And it doesn't matter if you have 637,000 followers or if you have 5. Your voice is useful to the cause. Get on there. You may not know the same stuff that I do, but I guarantee there's going to be stuff that you know that I don't know. That people like Bo the Fifth Column doesn't know. Walter Masterson, Jolly Good Ginger, Under the Desk News. We have our specializations. I went into this not thinking that anyone would be interested in a single word that I said. Like I said, I came into this by accident and finding my audience. So no matter what size your platform is, if you do good work, you do good work. And your voice is always necessary. There are tons of them against us right now. Join us if you like. It's as easy as opening the app, hitting record. You'll get used to it, and the nervousness goes away after a while.
And by God, vote.
Vote.
By all that's holy, vote. And if you're not religious, by all that's whatever, insert proper word here, vote. Mr. Musk is worth over $200 billion. He spent $44 billion on Twitter and still had over 200 billion left. Mr. Bezos is worth over $250 billion. But at the end of the day, and that money goes a long way in politics, let's be honest. It just does. And at the end of the day, when he walks in the voting booth, he has the same power you do. One vote. So by God, come hell or high water, if your primaries are coming up in your states, if your state is having elections in this odd number ended year, go and vote. It's only twice a year. How long could it possibly take you? If you're not in Georgia, how long could it possibly take you? A half hour a year, maybe an hour at the worst. Go and vote. That's the only thing I would add to that. You can do this too, and you can. You can vote. That's for darn sure. If this isn't your cup of tea, then go vote. So again, I'm eternally grateful. I simply don't have enough thanks to give you. I know it's been a long night. You were here on time or early even. And I'm just very, very grateful. And I hope that you will continue to pay attention to our program. Tune in when you can, live or recorded. And like I said, you know how to get to me. You know how to get to this program. Please don't let this be the only time you come see us.
I'll probably be back.
Well, thank you. I hope you enjoyed yourself too. I hope you had a fun night.
It was fun night. I didn't originally, be honest, I didn't plan on staying this long. I may only be 40, but I feel older than that. So it's like, oh, it's late. But
Yeah.
I did have fun, so that's why I stayed.
Well, thank you. Come back and see us again. And my best to you and yours. And
Awesome.
let's stay in touch and come back see us again.
Awesome.
Have a great night. Good night.
Night.
That's probably about all the damage that we can do for 1 week. To all of you out there across the Facebook universe at Hot 101 and TCP, that's pretty much all we can do for this week. Again, if you missed any of the program, please go to our YouTube channel, probably by Tuesday or Wednesday. We need to give George a little bit of time. He'll convert this over and you can watch us there. Watch the entire thing, watch it in bits, whatever it is that you need to do to take it in. And of course, everywhere that we've shared the program on Facebook, it lives on there too. You know that those posts never really go away. They might fall a little bit down the list and you might have to scroll and find them, but we never go away. Our Facebook group page has now surpassed 1,200 members. That doesn't sound like a lot compared to some of these others, but it's a bit of a mile marker for us. We added quite a number of new folks this week and welcome them all. And you are all welcome to join our Facebook group as well. That Other Side of Information. It is our home for all things regarding the Kennedy effect, including the articles and news and issues that we talk about. And it's not always political. I post a lot of environmental ads there, or ads, not ads, articles, he meant to say. I post a lot of animal advocacy articles there. Even astronomy, because I happen to fancy astronomy myself. I'm very fascinated by the stars and the heavens and the motions of bodies and planets and so on. So check us out. I also tend to usually post every single week. I usually post the Guardian's best wildlife pictures for the week. And good news things too, not all bad news. So check us out there. You can always check us out on all of our different social media. I got a new stand so now I can hold this thing because the other thing was broke. It's the truth. Twitter at That Kennedy Talk. You can email us thatotherkennedy@gmail.com. Facebook, we know, is That Other Side of Information. YouTube, That Other Side of Information. So is Instagram, Patreon, and TikTok. It's all the same. That Other Side of Information. So until next week, when our guest is Liz Mkhitaryan, one of the founders of Stop Moms for Liberty. If you don't know who Moms for Liberty is, you need to know. And we will cover it all next week. And you will need to know why they need to be stopped. We cover that next week when we are back with you live for May. The hell day is that? That would be the 7th, for May 7th. Join us then. For everyone at TCP, Marquise, Whitney, Andrew, and Taekwon, for everyone at hot101.net, DJ Lex, DJ Earl, DJ Chino, and everybody, the entire hot101.net family, for George, my technical producer, my dear friend, and his wife, Lynn, for April Riddick, and for Kristen, our dog Daisy, and our cat Guy downstairs. I'm Jeff Kennedy. Until next week, please take care of yourselves and each other. Coming up at 9 p.m., just 20 minutes from now, The Villain's View on hot101.net and right here on That Other Side of Information. So until next week, please take care of yourselves and each other. We will see you then. Have a wonderful week.